Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to a new video. My name is Dariloth. Thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to be taking a dip into the neutral cards for Elder Scrolls Legends. It's been a little while since the last ranking, but the last one that I did was Intelligence, and Intelligence was pretty good. So we'll hop into things and we'll see how well neutral can compare. I don't play a whole lot of neutral cards most of the time, but there are definitely some standout cards here as I was looking at them the other day. So, to start things off, we have a Night to Remember. Now, a Night to Remember, I immediately want to put up pretty high. So I think it's at the very least A tier. I don't know if it falls quite into S because there's a lot of stuff going on with this card. So, a Night to Remember, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a 2-cost action, and the text on it says that a friendly creature disappears to who knows where, then returns in the other lane shackled. Now, what this doesn't tell you is that when it returns, it will re-trigger the summon effect of any creature that gets thrown down. So, for instance, since it's right here, if we have a Memory Wraith and we use a Night to Remember on it, it will come back in the other lane shackled, and it will summon, banish your opponent's discard pile again, which is super nice. This can be used to disgusting effect with a lot of cards, such as in S tier. I mean, it combos well with any of these S tier summon cards. You can use it with Hallowed Death Priest if you want to be a huge dick. You can use it with Ancano to deal 10 damage in one turn. If you have Mushroom Tower, you can deal 15 damage with this card, provided you have a creature to betray. Abner Tharn, you can re-trigger summons on summons. You can get 6 damage out with Devaith multiple times. So, a Night to Remember, I think now that I've gassed it up a whole bunch, it will go into S tier. The only downside is that it shackles a creature, or shackles the creature that gets resummoned, but the amount of potential that comes with this is insane. And it has so much value with a lot of the higher value cards. So on its own, I suppose it maybe isn't as valuable, but also like a card like Reanimate isn't really going to be that useful without cards for it to work on as well. So we can't really fully judge it like that, I don't think. Also, this is only a 2-cost card, so again, a lot of this stuff can be done in one turn. Like it's not like you play down your Ancano and then you can't do a Night to Remember. That's a turn 10 combo that's very easy, or turn 9 if you have the ring. So something to keep in mind if you're looking to do a summon retriggering type of deck, a Night to Remember is definitely something you want to put in your list. Okay, Abandoned Imperfect is up next. This is a 5-cost support that's ongoing with the treasure hunt effect of trying to find 3 neutral cards. After you've found 3 neutral cards, you can sacrifice the Abandoned Imperfect to summon an 8/8 Awakened Imperfect with Guard and Breakthrough to the lane of your choice. This is a super duper niche card, but I think it has its place in kind of Factotum neutral based decks. So it's not completely useless, but honestly, there's not a whole lot to say with this. If you made an entirely neutral list, this thing would definitely get value. You'd get an 8/8 potentially on like turn 6 or 7, depending on the draw power of your deck. If you've got like Merchant's Camel or something in your neutral list, you could get some really good value from this. So yeah, Abandoned Imperfect is certainly a thing you can run. I would just only run it in like mono neutral Factotum lists. Okay, the Adoring Fan. The Adoring Fan is a 0/1 for 3 with Prophecy and Guard, and he's immune to Silence, and he has the last gasp effect of Adoring Fan will return. I would like to put this in great. Well, I'd like to put it in S. I don't think that it quite compares with the rest of these cards, but Adoring Fan is super cool. Now, at first, you're looking at this, you're like, okay, Dariloth, you're stupid. It's a 0/1 for 3. Yes, I am stupid, and yes, it is a 0/1 for 3. But it also has these insane effects of being immune to silence and the fact that when it dies, it will come back. So not only are you getting a Prophecy Guard in your list, which is super cool already, you're getting a cool character from, well, maybe not a cool, but you're getting a fun reference to a character from Oblivion also out of this. But the immune to silence is really the thing here that I want to highlight. If you have a Adoring Fan out in maybe like your item Battle Mage list, again, this is neutral. It can go into any deck, so this is something that we need to keep in mind with these neutral cards. Adoring Fan can go into any deck. You could put him in item Battle Mage. Let's say you have an Heirloom Greatsword right here. You just slap this on your Adoring Fan. Now you have a 5/1 that's immune to silence, which is super fun. Also, when he dies, he will return. Now, it's not specific on when he will return. I want to say it's something like I don't know the exact way that the mechanics work, but I think it's something like at least 3 turns from when he dies, he will be back, which is a consistent guard that will always come back. The only way to get rid of the Adoring Fan is to banish him. Other than that, he'll continue to be a problem for your opponent, and he just comes up at really, really cool times. A lot of the time, he'll show up just when you need him to, and he's again just got that guard, so he's all that he is a block in the way of your opponent's face. And for that, I really like him. I think that he's super versatile. Also, if you're doing a sacrifice-based kind of list with Mushroom Tower or any kind of Telvanni altar list, Adoring Fan's great because he's this card that is super cheap. You play him down, you can immediately sacrifice him, and you won't feel bad about him because he's going to come back. So he's consistent fuel for your sacrifice engines. So Adoring Fan, super cool card. Don't know if I should put him in S tier, but he's pretty good. Ageless Automaton, 4 cost 2/5. When Ageless Automaton attacks a guard, it gains +3/+0 and breakthrough this turn. So you're turning your 2/5 into a 5/5 when it attacks a guard specifically. I think that it's not bad. I mean, a 2/5 for 4 is like pretty decent, I guess, with this conditional effect. It's also a Dwemer, so we have to keep that in mind. Dwemer all synergize off of the Halls of the Dwemer, wherever that card is. Yep, so Dwemer will all synergize off of the Halls of the Dwemer, which is a super good card. So I think that I wouldn't put it anything lower than Niche. I think it just belongs in Tribal Dwemer, essentially. I don't think that it goes so far as Y, though. I mean, I can see reasons to run this thing, so it's kind of fun. Okay, Alduin is up next. Alduin is a 12/12 for 20 that costs 3 less for each dragon in your discard pile. The summon effect is that you destroy all other creatures, that's both friendly and enemy. And at the start of your turn, summon a random dragon from your discard pile. This card is super cool. It's very thematic of what Alduin does in game, and it's a pretty easy S tier. So in dragon-based decks, you can get Alduin down pretty low just by playing a lot of goofy stuff like Tiny Dragon or even good stuff like Spine of Elder's Blood. But my point is there's a lot of dragons that you can play that will reduce Alduin's cost. So the 20 cost is a bit deceptive. It wants you to play him in a dragon-based list. Now, what we talked about in the endurance list, I'm sure, is this card, Reanimate. So one thing that you can do with Alduin that is a big oversight by the devs is that you can kill him with specific cards in your hand. You can discard him. If you have a Corner Club Gambler, for instance, you could discard your Alduin. Let's say you're playing Scout. You have access to Agility and Endurance. So your Corner Club Gambler can discard your Alduin, put him in the discard pile, then on turn 9 you get to reanimate him without playing any dragons. You get to reanimate Alduin at a 20 cost for only 9, which is crazy. And then that's another thing with Midnight Burial as well. Choose a creature in your deck, you create a copy of that creature in your discard pile and give it a +1/+1. This is basically why Midnight Burial is up here in this upper echelon, and we'll talk about this again with another dragon coming up that you guys all know. But yeah, Alduin, you can kill him early and get him super early with reanimate. So there's this wicked combo, but even outside of that combo, he's just a very cool card. He's a complete board wipe and he maintains a lot of presence. Now he can be taken out by just like a piercing javelin, which is that's fine by me. I think that's good. But I really like the way that he functions. I think he's a very well built card. I just think that the cards that have come after him have not really taken him fully into account. And of course, dragons are very powerful. Okay, Altar of Despair, 6 cost support, uses 12, activate, sacrifice a creature to summon a creature from your deck that costs 1, then increase the cost that the sacrifice summons by 1. Altar of Despair, so the thing is, it's probably top of niche. The thing about altar decks, this is not going to work in every kind of deck, but this is a card that you build around completely. So with Altar of Despair, you want what's called an altar chain. And again, I'm preaching to the choir right now. Everybody knows this stuff that's going to be watching this video, but just in case anybody is watching this that doesn't know anything about Legends, you want to create an altar chain. So the max cost of a creature in this game, I guess, is actually Alduin with 20, but most cards outside of Soul Burst and Alduin are 12 cost max. So they're it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. What you do with Altar of Despair is you start chain with usually Ungolem is going to be the one that you start with because he's a very solid one drop and he shuffles Jesus he shuffles more one drops into your deck. So you sacrifice a creature, you summon your one cost creature, probably Ungolem. Then the next turn you sacrifice another creature, you get a 2-cost creature. The next turn you sacrifice that 2-cost creature, you get a 3-cost creature. And you're building up and you're essentially digging through your deck very quickly to try to get to like probably about your 5 to 6 cost creatures is where most people will destroy your Altar of Despair. If you're lucky, you can get it to go all the way to 12. So it's not always the most consistent thing, but damn, Altar of Despair is such a fun card, and I think it really, as far as being an iconic card, like it's definitely an S tier kind of uh, staple of the game. Altar decks are super fun, but I think that functionally you have to build around this so specifically because not every deck is going to have enough low-cost creatures to continue uh, the altar chain efficiently, and also it kind of requires you to build your deck in a way that's like you don't want to have that many 8, 9, or 10 cost creatures because your consistency of pulling them on altar is a little defeated. Like if you draw your 12 cost creature on turn 3, you're never going to pull it on altar. And if you have two 12 cost creatures in your deck, you're probably not playing Legends correctly. So altar, again, I like altar a lot. I could talk about it a lot more, but I think we're just going to keep it there. Requires you to build in a very specific way. Okay, Assembled Conduit. This is a 5-cost 3/3 with Assemble +1/+0 and Breakthrough, or +0/+1 and Regenerate. So the Assemble is going to be something that that we're going to have to talk about. So Assemble is this mechanic that works on all factotums, and essentially, when you play an Assemble on one creature, it will provide that buff for every other factotum in your deck or in your hand. So let's say that we have Assembled Conduit, we choose the +1 and Breakthrough. Now when we play our Assembled Sanitizer, he will also have a +1 and Breakthrough. Assemble is kind of the proto-invade. It provides this ability for you to buff up your creatures insanely high and give them keywords and boosted stats. So again, this is, by the way that we're doing this, probably top of niche. And I'm just going to say the same for the other ones. Assembled Conduit. Assemble is +2/+0 or lethal for that, and that's a very good Assemble as well. So we'll put him top of niche. I think Altar is still more fun. And then Assembled Sentry is just kind of your basic 2-cost 1/1. Assemble +0/+2 or Guard. So you can give them keywords and then you can start boosting their stats. Assembled Titan is going to be the problem child of the assembled group. So his assemble is that you get to choose 2 from his assembled list. You can either do +2/+0, +0/+2. You can deal 2 damage to your opponent, or you can gain 2 health. So they didn't think about the assembled Titan very well. He's a 6-cost 4/4 also. He's going into S tier, and this is another problem that we have with our discard pile shenanigans. So you think, okay, when this guy goes down, it's going to be an issue. You can choose to deal 2 damage to your opponent with this assemble effect, and then every other assemble creature that you have is going to get that effect. All these guys down here, when they're summoned, they will deal 2 damage to your opponent. And you can do gain 2 health or whatever else you want to do with them. I think maybe you can even choose deal 2 damage twice, because then you're dealing 4 damage, and it's just like having a lightning bolt whenever you play a creature. That is already kind of unbalanced. It's very tough to deal with. Basically, when Assembled Titan goes down, the game's over. There's no way to really come back from it. Couple that with the fact that when he dies, you can reanimate him through a various number of means. You could Soul Tear, you could do Reanimate, any of our kind of discard, sorry, any of our kind of discard pile related cards. Dark Rebirth works really well on this. So the thing here, when you bring him back, he can trigger his assemble again. And because he's a factotum, he gets the assemble that he already did. So then he'll deal 4 damage, and then you choose to deal 4 more damage. So the game can be over by like turn 7 basically. It's not even worth playing against. So uh, assemble's a fun idea in theory, but they really jacked it up. So that's why the assembled factotum or whatever his name is up there. This is the Awakened Imperfect. It's an 8/8 for 8 with Breakthrough and Guard, and I really don't have a problem with this. I think that it's probably actually up here and great. The thing about actually, I'll put him in solid. The thing about this card, it's coming a little bit late, right? But if we're just talking about 8/8 cards, I mean, Piranha's Lawman is not competing with Awakened Imperfect in terms of stat line. Now, it does have a ward, which is super nice, but if we're just comparing based on stats, the Awakened Imperfect is better. The thing about this card, and the reason I'm going to put it down here into solid, it's still good. I mean, an 8/8 for 8 with Breakthrough and Guard, you're getting a lot out of that card. The reason that I'm ruling the Awakened Imperfect a little bit lower is because you have cards like Sothasil that will summon it for free, and you have cards like uh, the one that we just talked about, the Abandoned Imperfect, that will summon it for free as well. So I don't really see a whole point of putting this in your list when there are so many ways to generate it outside of the actual card itself. But if you wanted to put it in a list, it's definitely not a bad choice. Okay, up next we have Barbas. Barbas is a 5-cost 3/3 with the summon effect of choose one. You can tell Barbas to stay and he gains +1/+1 in guard. You can tell him to fetch and he will put a random Daedra in your hand, and you can tell him to roll over and he will gain charge. Barbas is also a split type creature. I believe he's a Daedra and an animal, which doesn't really make sense because he's not actually an animal. He's just a shape-shifting Daedra, but that's okay. So Barbas, I think, will go into great. He's not so far as to go up into S tier, but a lot of these neutral cards have so many things going on that it's very hard to put them any lower. Barbas works really well in invade lists now because he can simply fetch something. He has a very high chance of getting a Daedra that can invade out of there, or just any kind of Daedra and invade is good because you're going to be benefiting from your portal. The summon effect of Stay, +1/+1 in guard, you're getting a 4/4 for 5 with guard, which isn't too bad. And then roll over gaining charge can actually be used to get the win sometimes, which is super nice. So very versatile card. Also with fetch, getting a Daedra, you can use that for unite combos to get stuff from outside of your color, which is super cool. I don't know what happened to the tier list. Okay, up next we have this Guar for 3. It's a 3/3 for 3, and the summon effect is that you give a creature guard. This is fine. It's a solid card. It might even go a little bit higher in some lists, but I don't think it really competes with a lot of these great cards up here. But it's fine. Giving a creature a keyword for free is good, and you're boosting your board for 3 for a 3/3. So pretty decent trade-off. Not really a whole lot to say about that one. Battle of Chalmun Keep is up next. This is a 5-cost action. Each player fills each lane with 1/1 recruits. Give all creatures guard. This is such a weird card. I'm very tempted to put it into Y. I don't quite get this one. Uh, the only thing that I think that this sets up is stuff for the Night Mother, and it sets up stuff for the Ancano Red Year combo. Other than that, you are basically just trading with your opponent with the 1/1 recruits that you put down. So I guess, you know what, I will put Battle of Chalmun Keep in niche because I'm thinking of more and more cases here. If you had a Slay-based list, this could be really good because you put down a bunch of creatures that can be easily killed by a lot of your Slay creatures because they all have guard. But if you're trying to actually kill your opponent, this is going to be very obnoxious and get in the way a little bit. So just pick and choose your battles with the Battle of Chalmun Keep. I don't really think that it's all that great. The 5-cost I'm not thrilled with, but it is doing a lot. I really like the art on it. I think it's cool. You got the Daggerfall guys looking at the Aldmeri and the Ebonheart down below. Pretty cool thematically. Okay, up next we have the Blackreach Rebuilder, 0/1 for 1, the Prophecy Guard, and Summon. Summon is that it gains 2 health for you. Again, this is fine. Anything with Prophecy and Guard is going to be good. I don't think that on its own it's super exciting. It's just kind of like a very basic card, but it's gaining you health, it's advancing your board, and of course it's a Dwemer. I'm kind of trying to speed through a handful of these because I want to get the rest of these tier lists out on the channel, so I hope you guys don't mind. going through very quickly on some of these. Blue Claw Matron, unplayable. Honestly, horrible card. So it's a 3/8 for 7. The only thing that you could do with this is you could put a Ring of Imaginary Might on it, and it could be good. But even with the Ring of Imaginary Might, I mean, you're going to be getting a 10/10 for 7, which is good, but that's you also have to factor in that the ring needs to be equipped onto the Blue Claw Matron. So that's going to be extra magicka there. And you have better options, I think, for the Ring of Imaginary Might. You have stuff like the Old Gate Warden, which is a good card that also has a keyword on it. Doesn't cost as much. You could even do like the Lowland Troll here, has a better stat line and a keyword on it. So Blue Claw Matron is just a worse version of a lot of different cards. There's also the Seething Flesh Golem, which I bet I ruled pretty high. Yep, there it is. It's a 3/8 for 8, but it just has a way better effect than the 3/8 for 7 neutral Blue Claw Matron. So I'm not a fan. A lot of the normal dregs don't impress me all that much. Okay, up next is the Brass Arquebus. This is a 6-cost 3/3 with the last gasp effect of draw 3 different random 1/1 creatures. Not 1/1, 3 different random 1-cost creatures from your deck. This is definitely niche. You're going to want a deck that has a lot of 1-cost creatures in it, which benefits pretty well um, with the Blackreach Rebuilder and some of the other small Dwemer spiders, but I don't think that this has as much value as this, because this you could put in any old list and kind of get some value out of it. This is a very hyper-specific case, and there are a handful of 6-cost 3/3s in the game. From what I remember, the Praetorian Commander is just a much better option than this if you're trying to fill a 6-cost slot on any list, so definitely a build-around type of case. Okay, Cadwell the Betrayer, 4-cost 3/5. Cadwell the Betrayer can attack you. Cadwell's he's kind of trash. I would put him in unplayable, but his stat line is decent, and we did just make a unique-based video, and Cadwell the Betrayer is actually, if you're just doing like a fully unique list, Cadwell could be useful, but I'm not even going to put him in niche. I don't think there's many decks that benefit from being attacked in the face. If you wanted to play like a Prophecy Battle Mage, and it's a last-ditch attempt to attack yourself to get a Prophecy, you're probably in dire straits. It's a fun card. A lot of these fun cards are going to be in the lower echelon here. The one thing that's saving Cadwell from unplayable, though, is his stat line to cost ratio. 3/5 is one of the best stat lines you can have, unless you're like Thorana. And again, 3/8's good, but this is just stupid. So 3/5 for 4 is a very basic, decent stat line, and it is kind of interesting that he can hit you and draw a Prophecy potentially, but I feel like he needs a little bit extra of attack. Like if you draw a Prophecy, Cadwell gains +1/+1 or something like that. It could be much more interesting. Cadwell the Soul Shriven up next is, I think, I don't know. Let's talk about him. He's a 0/1 for 1. He's immune to Shackle, which is cool. And then he also has this effect of when a rune is destroyed, Cadwell the Soul Shriven gains +1/+0. So I think I actually am going to put him into niche. Now, he does synergize well with his other half here. Cadwell the Betrayer can destroy runes on both sides of the board, and Cadwell benefits from runes being destroyed on both sides of the board. But I think you really want to combo Cadwell the Soul Shriven in a list that's like Crusader, right? That's going to benefit a lot from breaking runes. So we haven't gotten to the Crusader colors yet, but there's a lot of cards that benefit from rune breaks in those colors. And Cadwell would fit in very well with them. And you can buff him up with items and stuff. He can't be stopped because of the shackle. Obviously, you can silence him still. Not a great card, but kind of a fun card that actually bumps up a little bit better than the other part. Also, for anyone who doesn't know, these are split cards. So, but you have to play Cadwell the Betrayer with Cadwell the Soul Shriven, which is okay. I mean, again, 3/5 body for 4 along with a kind of useful card. Not too bad. Okay, Cauldron. We've talked ad nauseum about Cauldron on this channel. It is an easy S tier. This is an 8-cost action. It's a shout, and it upgrades all your shouts, which is insane. And then it also summons a random 6 to 8 cost dragon. So if we're looking at a lot of the dragons that we've talked about, Spine of Elder's Blood is a really easy one to point out that's good. Skeletal Dragon, Nahag-Leave, we have all of these in the great tier already. And there's a handful of other ones that, like, even if you get a Dova of the Voice, okay, I've clowned on Dova of the Voice a lot. Even if you got a Dova of the Voice, it's whatever, because not only are you're advancing your board state with this thing from Call Dragon, but it's it's also um, upgrading all of your shouts. So it's going to upgrade your Soul Tear. Soul Tear at level 2 buffs a creature that it draws from the graveyard. Uh, Drain Vitality at level 2 gives a -2/-2 instead of a -1/-1. Call of Valor at level 2 summons, I believe, 2/3/3 creatures. Um, the neutral shout dragon aspect deals 5 damage and gains 5 health or something, or it battles and then it gains 5 health. So it's just a flat upgrade to everything, and it's insane. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea. Shouts are already very powerful, and being able to just flatly upgrade all of them immediately is crazy. Also, this combos very well. Well, we'll talk about I, I guess I can talk about him now. The Greybeard Mentor, if you just have Call Dragons in your list, you can easily tutor this thing out with a Greybeard Mentor. You can upgrade this shout with a Word Wall as well. Word Walls do the same thing. They upgrade just whatever shout you have in hand. But the point is that if you play a Greybeard Mentor, you can pull a Call Dragon out, you play a Word Wall, you upgrade the Call Dragon, you could even play a Night to Remember on your Word Wall, re-trigger the summon effect of the Word Wall, upgrade the Call Dragon again. Now you have uh, you're summoning a 12 cost dragon, basically, for 8 cost Magicka. And you can do that 2 more times because of Call Dragon. If you combo this with Thorana, you can shuffle more of these in. I think you get the point on how this can spiral out of control. It's a very, very unbalanced card, and it is one of my least favorite cards in the game. Not only can it summon very powerful creatures for a decent cost with a bonus upgrade, it's easily findable, and the creatures that it summons can be unique. So, lots of problems with Call Dragon, but I've talked about it quite a bit on this channel. Okay, the Cheesemancer, 5 cost 4/4. This is a bit more of a lighthearted topic. At the start of the game, Cheesemancer gains the abilities of a random creature from Isle of Madness. Cheesemancer's fun. I don't care. I'm going to put it in niche. Um, the only reason, well, okay, fine. Fine. I'll put it in Y. But I know the reason why. The reason why is you want to have fun with Cheesemancer and you want to have fun with Legends. The stat line isn't even that bad, I'm going to be honest. A 4/4 for 5, totally fine. Obviously, it dies to Lightning Bolt, whereas like Cadwell the Betrayer wouldn't for 1 cost less, but we don't need to talk about that. The Isle of Madness has some decent creatures, and the fact that Cheesemancer has the ability to, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to put it up in a niche. Yeah, the niche is that you want to have fun. That's the niche why you play Cheesemancer. Um, the Isle of Madness has very decent cards, though, and so the fact that this can get any kind of ability from any of those cards at the start of the game is just fun, and it can be solid. Again, 4/4 for 5, decent. You're not really losing anything by putting Cheesemancer in your list, especially if you're not really taking the game all that seriously. You can just play it and have a fun time for a decent body. Clockwork Dragon is up next. This is a 5 cost 4/4. The summon effect is that if Clockwork Dragon is in the left lane, +2/+0 and drain, otherwise +0/+2 guard. Clockwork Dragon is a pretty great card, I would say. The 6/4, the prospect of a 6/4 with drain is crazy. The fact that it's a dragon synergizes very well with a lot of the other dragon-based cards that we've already talked about. Obviously, Clockwork Dragon cannot be pulled on Call Dragon because it is a 5 cost rather than a 6, but it doesn't really matter. The Clockwork Dragon is still good as it is, and the fact that it can be optioned for either a 6/4 with Drain or a 4/6 with Guard is just a super interesting mechanic. I would recommend if you're looking for a 5 cost to put in your decks that's just solid, Clockwork Dragon's a good option. Not really, um, it's not really that complicated of a card to understand either. It's just got a very basic, decent mechanic to it that's helpful in many different situations. It's kind of a flip card, so you can use it if you're trying to be aggressive, or you can use it if you're trying to be defensive. It is lane dependent though, that's the only problem with that. Okay, Close Call is up next. This is a zero cost action that unsummons a friendly creature. I think this is, if not S tier, it's A tier. But I'm going to put it in the same vein as, well, actually, it's like A Night to Remember, but worse. Well, no, it's not. It's like A Night to Remember, but different. So, whereas A Night to Remember immediately re-triggers the summon effect of a creature, Close Call does it with a delayed effect because you're bumping it back into your hand. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention with A Night to Remember is that when a creature gets resummoned in the other lane with this card, all of the negative effects or positive effects that were on it are gone. So if you had an item equipped to, uh, let's talk about the Memory Wraith again. I don't know why I can't think. If the Memory Wraith had a Sentinel Battle Mace on it and you played A Night to Remember, the Battle Mace would go away. The same thing applies with bumping cards back into your hand. So it's going to lose any effects that are on it. But that can be a good thing because if your card has been silenced or whatever, you can bump it back into your hand and it will be sort of refreshant. So let's say that like you have Galen, for example. With Galen, he will shuffle in multiple copies of creatures, right? So you could play Galen down to the board, you shuffle in 3 Ungolims, then you could bump Galen back into your hand and you could use him to shuffle something else in. Again, it's a little bit more of a niche case than A Night to Remember, I guess, but or no, I didn't explain that the way that I wanted to. If you wanted to do Galen on a card that's already on the board, right? So you play down last turn you played down a Hollow Death Priest, and then you draw Galen, you're like, oh shit, I wanted to shuffle those in. Then you could do a Close Call, bump the Hollow Death Priest back into your hand, and then you could play Galen down and shuffle more of them in. So that's kind of the case for Close Call that comes to mind immediately, is where you have stuff that you specifically want to do in your hand, like maybe buffs with rallies or Black Soul Gem or something. This is kind of the case for Close Call, but in general, any card that's going to be giving you back your card is good. So it kind of recycles all of these good aspects about any of the cards. I think A Night to Remember is super interesting because it's an immediate retrigger, but Close Call is pretty good as well. Just a little bit different. Okay, Crocodile Brute. This is a 2/2 for 2 with Prophecy, and when Crocodile Brute is consumed, you draw a card. This is fine. It's just kind of it belongs in a list with a card that can consume. Other than that, it's pretty good. I think a 2/2 for 2 with Prophecy, not really that bad. I don't really have a problem with that. So, whereas some of these cards like what did I rank the Imbued Bosmer, right? Put that pretty high. And thinking about this card, it does actually have a pretty decent stat line. If you're running some kind of Prophecy Battle Mage list, I think that this card's solid. It's actually good. If you're running some kind of Prophecy Battle Mage list and you proc this thing off Prophecy, so long as you've put in some kind of consume card in your list, you're going to be benefiting from this being able to consume it and just get free draw power for also consuming something. So I think it's good. Crushing Blow. 3-cost action, deal 3 damage. This is basically the same deal as Lightning Bolt, just slightly worse, but and only by one damage, right? Lightning Bolt has Prophecy, deal 4 damage. Crushing Blow is just a flat deal 3 damage, but you have to look at how they're balanced. Lightning Bolt is only in blue, and it has the Prophecy tag. Crushing Blow, though, costs less and it can be put in any kind of list. So again, this is going to be really good for decks like Crusader that can just benefit from runes breaking. I think maybe this will go down into great rather than S tier because I don't know if it quite competes with some of these other cards up here. But again, super good card. I mean, it's very versatile and it's super aggressive. It can be used not only to deal face damage, but it can also get pesky creatures off of the board because a lot of creatures will die to 3 damage. So just a very decent card. Okay, Dark Harvester. This is a 2/4 for 7 with Prophecy and Guard, and the summon effect is that you gain 4 health. Now, back in the day, in the core set, I think the Dark Harvester was better. As of today, it has a very niche case. Um, you really just want to be playing this in Prophecy, but this card feels so bad, in my opinion, to play for the full 7 cost. It is horrendous. To play a 2/4 for 7 that gains 4 health. I just really don't like it. I personally, I mean, this is my tier list. I know a lot of people like this card quite a bit. For me, it's not worth the risk of possibly running that. Now, I will say, I've been looking at Assassin Beetle again recently, and the prophecy, play a prophecy from your hand, can actually be useful for something like Dark Harvester, but it's almost like a sunk cost fallacy, right? You're playing a 5 cost 2/2, get out your 7 cost 2/4. At the end of the day, I guess you've spent 5 magicka and you've advanced your board quite a bit in that instance. So maybe I was too harsh on Assassin Beetle at first, but yeah, some of these, it's not my play style to play around prophecies like that. So I'll give Assassin Beetle a bump up, but um, just because we're talking about Dark Harvester, it reminded me. Okay, Dawnfang is up next. This is an item. I think it's our first item in neutral we've reviewed. This is a very interesting item. So at first, it's a +0/+3 item, and then at the end of your turn, if Dawnfang is in your hand, you change it into Duskfang. Now, the slay effect for creatures that have Dawnfang is you gain 5 health when they kill something, which is super cool. And then Duskfang is the inverse of Dawnfang, so it does a +3/+0 to whatever creature it's equipped on, and it has the Pilfer effect of draw a card, I believe, which entices you to hit face. So, Dawnfang, I think, is a pretty easy great. I really like it. I don't think that it's quite S, but again, a lot of these cards, very complicated stuff going on. Adoring Fan, Barbas, Clockwork Dragon, Dawnfang. Multiple lines of text, lots of weird stuff. So Dawnfang's not always going to be useful. Sometimes it's going to switch into Duskfang when you don't want it to. Sometimes it's going to switch into Dawnfang when you don't want it to. You just have to be smart about when you equip it onto something, essentially. And they're really fun to shuffle in with Galen. I really like having multiple of those in my deck. So cool, very cool card, very useful, very versatile. Okay. uh, we have the Demented Grummite up here. And this thing sucks. Flatly, that just sucks. I think that a 3/2 for 3, like it's battling here with the Redoran Enforcer basically. The only thing about this card is that you can you can put it in any deck. But there's going to be something in willpower, agility, endurance, strength, or whatever the other one is that I missed. There's going to be something in any of those colors that's going to beat this out most of the time. So definitely one of these cards that's not for me. It is a split card between the Manic Grummite, which we'll get to. Maybe I can find it. My perception skills are very low today, though. There we go. The Manic Grummite is just the inverse. It's a 2/3 for 3. And again, Redoran Enforcer fits right in with those. They're just not very good. They're taking up a slot in your list that it's just useless. It's the only thing with this is that it can be because it's a split type card or a dual card, I guess. Um, it can be used to do some goofy stuff with Transmogrify because they don't count as a creature that Transmogrify can pull. Other than that, they're pretty not good. So there's many other cards that you could play that I think are better than this. Dismantle is up next though, and it's a 3 cost action that it will either destroy a neutral card or it can take out an enemy support. This is an S tier card. So Disassemble was created to kind of counter some of the neutral cards that are insane, I think. It can take out Alduin just for 3 cost, which is nuts. It can take out the Assembled Titan, which is nuts. It could take out Barbas, Adoring Fan, Clockwork Dragon, any of this stuff. Awakened Imperfect can be taken out by this. So that's cool in and of itself already. I like that it's a card that targets a very specific type of card. Then you have the fact that it can destroy supports as well, and supports are some of the strongest ways to alter the board in this game, so being able to get rid of them, like getting rid of a Thieves' Den or an Alduin, is just a great tool to have in your back pocket. Plus, any action can be shuffled in with Thorano, so you can get more of them for 0 cost, which is super cool, but doesn't actually really affect the ranking of that card. Just a fun point to point out. Okay, the Doomfang ally, this is a 3/3 for 3. I really like this card. I think it's, I don't think it goes any higher than solid, but it's super fun. So the summon effect is that if the top card of your deck is X color, then you get some sort of extra effect for it. So if it's a strength card, you get a +2/+0. If you get a blue card, it's ward. If you get a willpower card, it's drain. If you get a agility card, it's lethal. And if you get endurance, it's a +0/+2. So this is pretty cool if you're playing a tricolor deck and you have like Queen Ayrenn, then your Doomfang ally will gain Ward, Drain, and Lethal if that's the next card, which is pretty cool. Typically, the top card of your deck is going to be some kind of color. Unless you're playing mono neutral, then I wouldn't really recommend playing this thing. But if you just want to throw this in for like some extra spice in your life, in your in your intelligence list, then at the very worst you're going to get a 3/3 for 3 with Ward. So I like these. I think they're fun, and I don't really have a problem with them at all. I wouldn't say that they're niche either because they work in most decks. It's not like there's most decks that it doesn't work in. It does typically work in most decks. Maybe not the most powerful thing to include, but it's fun. Okay, the Dormant Centurion is next. This is a 3/5 for 3. Dormant Centurion can't attack unless you played an action this turn. This is unplayable. I've never seen anybody play this in my whole life. I don't even know what the idea is with this. Like, what's the goal here? Why are we playing this? The stat line is not even that good for that weird text on the bottom. This could be used in self-silence lists, I guess, if you wanted to get rid of that horrible effect, but a horrible effect at the end of the day is still a horrible effect. So I think this is just awful, but tell me if I'm wrong, I guess. Dragon Aspect is up next. This is a 4-cost action. That's a shout. You gain 3 health and you battle an enemy creature as if you had 3 power. So this is a very interesting shout. I think this one's where do we want to rank this? I think just because it's a shout, it's going to go into great because they can be boosted by so many different means. It's very easy to boost them. Dragon Aspect, though, yeah, you gain 3 health and you battle an enemy creature as if you had 3 power. So what this means is that you, as the player, will battle another creature. So if we had Barbas on the board, for instance, we would gain 3 health, we would attack Barbas, and then because we have 3 power, according to Dragon Aspect, Barbas would die. And then we'd be at a net neutral because we would have killed Barbas, but we gained the 3 health that he attacked us with. So it basically allows you to become a creature during this time and fight another card. I've seen really funny things happen with Dragon Aspect. You have to remember that you gain the health before you battle the enemy creature. I killed a guy one time because he I had an Induril, or no, a False Incarnate out, and he played this thinking he was going to heal, but False Incarnate does not allow health gain, so he basically killed himself. It was really funny. So just keep that in mind, because that's my little anecdote about that. But yeah, Dragon Aspect is just good. I mean, it gains health. If you have something like the Ebonheart Oracle out, you'll be gaining a little bit of extra health. If you're playing around something like the Leafwater Blessing, this can be cool to gain you health for that. A little bit of niche cases there, but I think it bumps up the overall value of this. Plus, it's neutral, so it can be put in anything, and it's very similar to the Crushing Blow here, except that this is going to upgrade. So the first one deals 3 damage, gains you 3 health. The second one will gain you 5 health, deal 5 damage, and then the final one gains 7 health, and you battle an enemy creature as if you had 7 power. So it can be great removal for a lot of these high-cost creatures to get them off the board, and it's just a solid way to combat stuff. It's also interesting because you can use this effectively in kind of like Cadwell the Betrayer to attack yourself. If you wanted to break a rune, I guess you could go and battle an Iron well, that's a bad example, but I guess you could go battle like not Hulking Scalon either. Tazcad. Let's pick on Tazcad. You could attack Tazcad with your Dragon Aspect, and then maybe he would do enough damage to you to break one of your runes if you're in a dire situation. So again, just very versatile. I like the card. I don't really play with it a whole lot because I don't like shouts, but it's fun. Dragon Mound. Okay, this is a 6 cost support that's ongoing, and the summon is that you transform all cards in your deck into random dragons, and your dragons cost 1 less. Honestly, I don't know quite where to put this. This is such a weird card. I'm going to put it into solid because, as I've said several times throughout this series, dragons are powerful. And turning every card in your deck into a dragon, sure, it might not have much synergy internally, but you could get some really good cards out of that. I mean, if you get a 5 cost Icewing Dragon, 5 cost Glacial Dragon, uh, 5 cost Spine of Elder's Blood, I mean, that's a lot of value, right? So, uh, yeah, just crazy. I mean, you're not going to have too much draw power because dragons aren't really known for that, but you'll be getting a powerful creature pretty much every turn, unless you get like Tiny Dragon. But Tiny Dragon is powerful in its own right. Okay, up next is the Dreg Shell Armor. This is a 4 cost item for +3/+3. Also with Dragon Mound, by the way. I feel like every time someone plays that on me, I die. I mean, maybe that's a skill issue, but somehow I die every time that Dragon Mound is played. It's nuts. Okay, Dreg Shell Armor, 4 cost, +3/+3 item. This is just good. I mean, as far as items go, I like the stat line. I like that it can be used in a lot of stuff, so it is a solid card on my end. Again, it's not really that interesting to talk about. The Dwarven Armaments also 6 cost 5/5. It's good. It's a really good item. It's one of the strongest items in the game, I think, because it boosts not only your attack power but your defense by 5 in both respects. I might even be convinced to put it up into great. I really like this thing. I think that of all of the items, it's maybe top 5 for me just in terms of sheer damage that you can output in one turn. I mean, if you look at the Heirloom Greatsword here and compare it, Heirloom Greatsword is a +5/+0 for the same cost. So if you're looking for defense along with offense, the Dwarven Armament, I would at least include one in your Battle Mage item type decks. Okay, up next is the Dwarven Ballista. This is a 6 cost 5/5 with Breakthrough. It is, I mean, it's fine. It's solid. You could play it. I mean, there's a specific place to play it. You want to play that in Dwemer-based decks, but doesn't mean it's bad. Uh, you could get away with throwing this in any kind of list, is my point, especially like an aggressive style Crusader list. If you don't have a whole lot of decent Crusader Nord type cards, you could throw in a Dwarven Ballista just for some extra damage on your opponent's face. Okay, 7 cost, 6/8 for the Dwarven Centurion up next with Breakthrough. When Dwarven Centurion takes damage, you put a 0/3 Dwarven Spider with Guard in your hand. Again, this card is actually fine. You're generating value from getting attacked, which is pretty cool. The 7 cost is a little dubious, but the 6/8 stat line's good. It does have just Breakthrough, though. It doesn't have Guard. If this thing had Guard, I think it would be a lot better. But with, you know, the Guar over here, you could give it Guard very easily if you're doing a full neutral list or something, for example. There's several other cards that grant Guard as well. Skinned Hound could be used very effectively with this, I could see. So you're going to be generating these Dwarven Spiders. They are super cheap to put down, if not 0 cost. I can't quite remember. But yeah, they have Guard, so you're just going to be putting up a big blockade. This is a card that I'd actually like to play around with in the future at some point. It also synergizes obviously with Halls of the Dwemer and some other tribal stuff that you can do with Dwemer cards. So very decent option, not just belonging to Dwemer decks though. Okay, Dwarven Colossus is an 11/11 for 11 with the summon effect of summon a power sphere in each lane. I'm putting him in S tier. I really like this card. The reason I really like this card is that it's an 11 cost. So there's not a whole lot of 11 costs in Legends to begin with. This is a very interesting point also for the Altar of Despair. If you're running a deck that doesn't have access to like a decent 11 cost, then you can throw in this neutral Dwarven Colossus and it generates so much value. The power spheres are 0/5 guards that have this effect of if they're out by the time that your next turn starts, along with Dwarven Colossus, they will generate a random keyword onto the Colossus. So this thing gets better with time, so long as the power spheres are out. If you don't have an immediate way to deal with the Dwarven Colossus like a Piercing Javelin, you're going to want to get rid of those Power Spheres as quickly as you can because they're going to continue buffing up the Colossus. Lots of fun, super cool card, very high stat line, um, and completely fair cost. 11 for 11. I really like it. It's one of these things that's like, I know that I rated Hulking Scalon and the Iron Atronach a little bit lower because of their uh, their costs, but I don't know. There's something about the Colossus that I'm just a really big fan of. I like that it can continually get better. Um, but there is also to be said, maybe we will bump it down because um, Hulking Scalon and Iron Atronach are fantastic because they cannot be targeted by actions, whereas Dwarven Colossus, you do play that down and you can get just immediately eliminated by a Piercing Javelin. So I guess I will put it a little bit lower, but it's still a super, super cool card. Not nearly as broken as some of the S tier cards, so I guess we will put it down. Okay, Dwarven Dynamo is up next. This is a 4-cost 2/1 with the summon effect of give another creature +3/+3 and guard. Again, totally fine card. But the fact that the Dwarven Dynamo can be used to gain some tempo on your opponent by both increasing your board state and adding a buff onto another creature is super cool. Now, it can't give the buff to itself. It's that tag of give another creature +3/+3 and guard, not yourself. But I like it nonetheless. It is a horrible stat line, the 2/1 for 4. But again, you're not using it for its stat line. You're using it to both put a creature on the board and advance another one. It's actually very similar to the Satanine Courier here, in that you're playing the Satanine Courier for the steel sword that it provides and the body that you get on the board. Except this does it a little bit better, but to a 2 higher cost. Okay, Dwarven Sphere. This is a 3-cost 2/3 with the summon effect of Shackle an enemy creature. A lot of these cards, guys, are gonna probably be just solid. Dwarven Sphere is solid. If you don't have access to Shackle cards, again, I'm gonna pick on Crusader. Intelligence has a lot of this stuff already, so if you don't have like a Shackle type creature, you can just play a Dwarven Sphere instead. And it's a 2/3 body for 3 with that extra effect. Granted, it's not as good as Harpy because Harpy has Prophecy, but these cards are supposed to be universal. They're supposed to be able to be put into any kind of deck and get some good effect out of them. And I think for the most part, they're doing a good job of that as we've been going through. I haven't really put too many in niche. I mean, yeah, there's a few that are very specific to Dwemer type stuff or, Cheesemancer, but most of them are pretty good. So, okay, Dwarven Spider. This is the 0-cost 0/3 that we were talking about. And again, I mean, for 0 cost, like, yeah, why not? Why not throw that in your deck? If you're doing a very specific guard-based thing, then yeah, the Dwarven Spider is going to be super cool. Even if not, a 0-cost 0/3, yeah, it's just acting like a barrier at the end of the day, but I mean, again, I guess we're going to give it the same treatment that we gave the Imperfect. So I'll put it down into niche. You wouldn't normally run these in your deck, I will say, unless you're playing a fully Dwemer list, right? But uh, it's cool as it can be generated by other cards as well. So you have where was that Centurion that we just talked about? The Dwarven Centurion here will generate these by itself. So there's not really a whole need to put these in your deck as is, but it has a very cool niche case of just being able to block for a very effective cost. So I like it. Dwemer Puzzle Box. This has 3 uses. It's a support, it's 2 cost, and when you activate it, you discard the top card of your deck. The last gasp of the Dwemer Puzzle Box is that you draw a card. So you're discarding 3 cards to draw 1, and it's a card that you don't really know what it's gonna be. I'll be honest, I've never understood this card. If you're trying to just discard stuff, there's better ways to do it, I think. Um, It's a waste of a support slot, I think. It takes a lot of time to set up. It takes 3 whole turns just to draw 1 card. So there's probably a fringe case of this that I'm just not getting, but I have typically never wanted to use this, and I've never really seen anybody use it. So it gets an F from me. The Elixir of Conflict is up next. This is a very basic support. It's a 3-cost support with the activate of give a creature +1/+1. I do kind of like this thing, but I'm going to put it into Y. I think there's better ways to get buffs than this. I did use this quite effectively in one of my own lists. I tried to do Invade, but I did Invade without any Daedra or or anything like that. I was basically just trying to buff creatures like the Lame Corpus up, and some of these cards that are not very useful. So Elixir of Conflict was kind of fun to do with that, but it's not really all that good. It's not really all that viable. You're better off probably running some items in your deck, or just like if you want extra attack power, there's the Orc Clan Captain that you can put down that'll buff all cards in a lane by just one. So simpler ways to do what the Elixir of Conflict is trying to do, again, over the course of 3 turns. Now, if you build around this with cards like the Tower Alchemist and the Cauldron Keeper, sure, you can do that, but again, there's way better cards to do, especially in those colors. With those two, you could just play a Divine Fervor, and it's way easier. So, yeah, we'll just leave Elixir of Conflict where it's at. So up next is the Enlistment Officer. This is a 3/3 for 3 with the summon effect of give friendly recruits +1/+1. This belongs in recruit-based decks. It is good in recruit-based decks, but it doesn't really go any higher than niche because of that. It has a very specific home where it belongs. Enraged Mudcrab. This is a 2/1 for 1. Oh boy. I mean, okay. I'll put it in niche because of Old Salty's Assault. That's the only reason that this would go in niche, because it belongs in Mudcrab decks. um, I I think Mudcrabs, they actually generate tons of value, which is crazy. So when you have all of them together, it can be very annoying to put up with. So Enraged Mudcrab definitely is niche, and we will get to Old Salty's Assault eventually here. Fabricate is up next. This is a 1-cost action that allows you to build a custom creature and put it into your hand. Now, the custom creature, that might sound a lot more appealing at first than it actually is, because it's completely random. It gives you random stats for this creature that you're going to create. It gives you random keywords or random upgrades that you can have for its stat line along the way. But Fabricate's also super cool. You can make some really cool creatures with it. You can make just like a basic 5/5 with Drain and have that in your hand, and your opponent won't know what it is. It also is fun because it works in creatureless type decks that you start the game essentially with no creatures. Fabricate's a good way to get the ball rolling with getting creatures out, because honestly, it's like impossible to win without using a creature. It's possible technically, but it's very hard. So yeah, Fabricate is a cool way to get around that, and I like that it's neutral and can be put in any kind of deck. So it's fun. I don't think it's insane because a lot of it's RNG, but it's fun. Okay, Ferocious Dreg, 3/5 for 4, unplayable. Cadwell, again, just play Cadwell if you're going to look for a neutral 3/5 for 4. And plus with Cadwell the Betrayer, you also get Cadwell the Soul Shriven. There's just much better ways to get decent stat lines like this. I don't really get the Dreg all that much. They're not very consistent or reliable. Just kind of boring too. Very boring art. Okay, Flesh Sculptor's up next. This is a 3-cost support. You can activate it 3 times. It'll transform each card in your hand into a random card. This is actually, it's niche. You typically wouldn't want to run this, but random cards aren't necessarily bad. There's a lot of good cards in this game. You just have to make sure that you draw one of them with this thing. But yeah, you transform your whole hand into random cards. This can be used in Unite decks pretty effectively, because Unite the Houses is, of course, trying to get cards from all different colors, and Flesh Sculptor can help you along the way. Now, the downside with this is that if you have a Unite the Houses in your hand, it will get transformed into something else. There's also some cases where you can play the Flesh Sculptor and you'll get a card that you just can't actually play. Like, again, if you gotta Unite the Houses, that's just dead weight in your hand. It's cool that you can recycle the cards up to 3 times to get some stuff that you want. So I like Flesh Sculptor. I think it's fun, and yeah, why not why not play a deck with it, you know? Okay, the Fork of Horripilation. 3-cost item. -2 plus 0 to your stat line. But the slay effect is what's important here. So the slay effect is that you sacrifice the Fork of Horripilation and you draw cards. Fork of Horripilation, this might be controversial and I may talk myself out of it. I'm going to put it in S tier. The thing that I really like about the Fork is the draw power is insane. And especially later on in the game, that -2 to the stat line is not really going to matter so much, and there's ways to get around it as well. Let's say that you have a Old Gate Warden out. You throw the Fork of Horripilation on it first. The -2 to the stat line doesn't do anything because he's already at 0 attack power. And then you just play something like a Daedric Dagger on that, and you give it +1 in lethal. And in that instance, okay, fine, I'll put Fork down lower. But in that instance, you're getting a lethal creature that can slay and draw 3 cards. Another really fun thing to do with this is to Galen in copies of this because you will get it to be a +1/+3 stat line that the Fork of Horripilation will grant, which is super fun as well. So Fork, insane draw power, not really that hard to get around, especially in the mid to late game where you'll be drawing that most of the time. Okay, the Forsworn Champion is a 3/3 for 5. The summon effect is that you choose a friendly creature, and friendly creatures of the chosen type have +1/+1. This guy's niche. He's kind of helpful in tribal-based decks. Other than that, why play him? You'd really want this guy in like a fully tribal Nord list or fully tribal Argonian maybe. He would just help those cards make it a little bit farther down the way with extra damage and health. So again, there's better ways to do this. Divine Fervor is good, but if you're not playing something in Willpower, then I guess you could play the Forsaken Champion, and he's got a spot. Okay, the Forsworn Guide. This is a 1/1 for 3 with the summon effect of unsummon another friendly creature to give Forsaken Guide +2/+2. So you're basically getting a +3/+3, but he can be removed through silence effects. That stat line can be. But let's look at what he's doing. He's also unsummoning another friendly creature. So this can be seen as a downside. I don't really think it is because, again, you can unsummon creatures to replay their summon effects. Now, I am going to put him a little bit lower than his other two counterparts with the Night to Remember and Close Call. Maybe that's a little bit controversial. But I do think that he's taking something away from the ability to resummon summon effects. Like Close Call is a 0 cost, so you can just pull whatever creature you had down, and then you can play it for basically no loss in tempo because of the 0 cost. The Forsworn Guide, yes, it does provide a 3/3 body, but most of the time you're going to be playing this just to bump something back into your hand, and if you've bumped something that's above a 9 cost, you're not going to be able to play it in a deck where you haven't boosted your Magicka. Like on turn 12, for example. So Forsworn Guide is a little bit worse than the other two, but again, same principle applies. Unsummon effects are very, very good. Okay, up next we have the Forsworn Looter, a 2-cost 1/1 with Pilfer. Draw a random item from your deck with cost equal to Forsworn Looter's power. Yeah, very, very, this is hyper niche. I mean, I'm not going to put him into Y because I totally understand the card, but it's very hyper niche. I've seen this card used to get very specific items out of a deck before, but uh, I'm maybe too small-brained for that. So Forsworn Looter is a card that I would like to screw around with in the future, but as it is right now, I haven't done so. But I think that just from an outsider's perspective, Forsworn Looter seems like a very fun niche card. Frenzied Witchman, a 3-cost 2/1 with the summon effect of give a creature +2/+1. Frenzied Witchman is fine. I'm going to put it into solid. It's fine. It's a 3-cost 2/1 that can buff itself up to being a 4/2 because you give a creature +2/+1. 4/2 for 3, not bad. Maybe not the most interesting card in the world, but it's kind of cool. And you can use it to push face damage as well. If you've got a card down that's near lethal to your opponent, you could give it that extra 2 damage to potentially buff it up just like an item. But again, creatures are typically better than items because they can be placed on the board. Okay, Gates of Madness is up next. This is a 3-cost support. It's ongoing. The summon effect is that you transform your deck into random cards. When you draw a creature or item, you give it a +1/+1, and when you draw an action or support, you reduce its cost by 1. Again, I know why you play this. It's because you want to have fun. um, I am going to put it into niche, though, because there's a very specific thing that you can do, and that's Unite the Houses. If you've drawn your Unite the Houses, you just play Gates of Madness, and you have a higher chance of drawing something outside of your colors than you did while you were in your colors. So Gates of Madness is used as a Unite piece sometimes, but typically I don't like to throw it in my Unite lists because I prefer the consistency of my Unite decks. But I do really like Gates of Madness. I think it's this fun RNG type thing, and I like the compensation that it gives you for potentially having uh, zero synergy between any of your cards. It gives your creatures and items +1/+1, and it reduces the cost of your actions and supports. So very cool idea for a card, and it fits very well with Sheogorath's Realm of Madness. Okay, up next is the Gearwork. Okay, up next is the Gearwork Spider. This is a 1/1 for 1 with Prophecy, Guard, and Summon. Summon of Gearwork Spider, or summon all of your Gearwork Spiders from your discard pile. Yeah, this is I mean, this is pretty good. It's got Prophecy and Guard. It's a 1-cost card, obviously, but the Prophecy and Guard are helpful. And the summon effect, resummoning all of the Gearwork Spiders from your discard pile is super cool because there's multiple ways to get these into your discard pile. You can generate tons of them, and he also kind of works well with that one card in niche that we talked about, the Brass Arquebus. Draw 3 different 1-cost creatures from your deck. This guy is a 1-cost Dwemer that will synergize well with the rest of them. So it's a cool little thing that you can do. I think it is a little bit more consistent than some of the other cards, but it's just a cheap, easy thing to throw in early in some of your decks, especially if you're struggling on finding good cards. That thing's decent. Okay, Ghost Fanatic is up next. Ghost Fanatic costs 1 less for each creature that died this turn. Again, super weird text. I don't. I want to throw them in Y because I don't understand why you would play this. But I guess maybe in Sacrifice Slay type decks that are trying to kill a lot of cards, if there are a lot of creatures that have died this turn, you could get this down for 0 cost, and then you're updating your board pretty efficiently. So I've never really been able to find a good case for this thing, but I'd imagine that there is some kind of way to do so. So I'm going to put them into niche. Okay, up next, Giant Chicken, 7 cost 5/5. The last gasp is that you fill this lane with 1/1 confused villagers. This is a really good meme card. I actually don't think the stat line is bad, and I kind of think the last gasp is funny. So what you can do with this last gasp effect uh, is you could have like a Mundus Stone out maybe, and you get all the confused villagers to have different keywords now, which is cool. They could all roll charge or lethal or something fun like that. The Giant Chicken also, like I said, 5/5 for 7. I think that's competing with the Eclipse Baroness in terms of stat to cost. Yeah, it's actually better stat to cost wise. Um, Probably don't put this in any of your decks because there are better things than Giant Chicken though. Um, it would have to be a very niche case to play Giant Chicken, but I do think that just in terms of stat line alone, it's it's kind of funny. And it could advance your board potentially very well. There's also, and I was subjected to this a few days ago, you know who you are. There is a deck that you can do with the Heretic Conjurer from the Isle of Madness, where if you've pilfered with the Heretic Conjurer, all the creatures that you summon to the board will transform into random Daedra. And I believe that would work with this combo with the Last Gasp, having all of the confused villagers. It's a way more convoluted way to use the Imperial reinforcements, essentially, with that combo. So Giant Chicken stays winning. Okay, Giant Slaughterfish is up next. This is a 4-cost 3/3. Give friendly animals +2 at the start of your turn. Yeah, totally niche. Belongs in Animal Monk. Not much to say. It's a decent card. It's actually one of the cards that you want to play in Animal Monk to make that deck work as well as it does. Glass Helm of Remedy is a 4-cost item that gives you no attack power but 4 defense, and when you summon the helmet, you gain 4 health. I've got no problem with this. I think it's a pretty good item. It's a defensive item for sure, but it's a good item. Plus it gains you some health, and again, health gain can be comboed with all different kinds of stuff. Okay, Goldbrand is up next. This is a 7-cost support. The activate, it has 3 uses, and the activate is that you deal 2 damage to a creature. Then you increase the damage dealt by 2. Now, with Goldbrand, you're playing it down for 7, which I think is probably the worst part about Goldbrand. The uses, 3 is also not ideal. Essentially, though, with Goldbrand, you're dealing 2 damage, then 4, then 6. So it's a very consistent way to get rid of stuff, but only for about 3 turns. It's on the same level, in my eyes, as the College of Winterhold, which I also put in great. I think it's good. It can be boosted with cards like the Tower Alchemist and the Cauldron Keeper as well to disgusting effect, but most of the time the Goldbrand is just going to be dealing 10 damage with or 12 damage with the 2 before and then the 6, which is super good, but it's split up over a few turns, so you just got to be a little bit smart when you use Goldbrand. Other than that, I think it's good. It doesn't quite fly into S tier though, on its own. If it's comboed with other stuff, it's definitely S tier. Okay, up next we have the Great Sigil Stone. This is a 4-cost 3-use support as well with the activate of Invade. The last gasp for this, which is insane, is that you draw a random Daedra from your deck and you give it +2/+2. This definitely goes into niche. It's made specifically for Invade type decks. The one thing that I don't understand about Great Sigil Stone is the fact that it has this last gasp effect. So you would think when the 3 uses are over, that's when you get the last gasp, but it's also if you remove this, if a Dishnikyal Archer shoots this, or a Shadowfen Priest shoots this, you're drawing a random Daedra. You're getting rewarded for this thing getting taken out, basically, which is insane. It's only 4 cost. If this was like 8 cost or something, maybe you could justify that, but the amount of magicka that you're putting in and the amount of value that you're getting out from this is pretty wild. Granted, it's split up over 3 turns, but again, destroying this is kind of a, it's like shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. But it's good. It's just in Invade specifically. Okay, Greybeard Mentor, 4-cost, 2/2. Summon effect, draw a random shout from your deck. So this is what I was talking about with you put a, just call dragons in your deck and then you have a Greybeard Mentor pull this out. Shouts are very powerful, dragons are very powerful, so building a deck with Greybeard Mentors in it if you're doing dragons is an easy way to probably get to Legend at this point. I don't really play with dragons, so I wouldn't know, but the Greybeard Mentor is a very annoying card to go up against. Even if it's not pulling a Call Dragon, it could pull Soul Tear, or it could pull Unrelenting Force, or any of the shouts. I'd say most all of the shouts are good, so getting any of them just for free with the summon effect is cool. And again, there's ways to mitigate the randomness of the shout that you pull, depending on what color you're in. The stat line also, the 2/2 for 4, it's inconsequential. You're not playing the Greybeard Mentor for the stat line. You're playing it to pull the shout out. It could die immediately upon being played, like a Falling Wizard, and it would have the same amount of value in my eyes. Gristlehide Dreg is up next. This is a 5-cost 3/5. When Gristlehide Dreg takes damage and survives, you draw a card. I actually think this, some people would say this is niche, I'd imagine, because it belongs in like Wounded Warrior. I don't think so. I think Gristlehide Dreg actually has a good stat line, and it's got a cool effect of being able to draw a card from taking damage and surviving. So we've got a few cards like that it's like if this card survives, do this. Basically, this is a veteran effect, essentially, but it's reverse veteran for surviving, getting any damage taken at all, not just surviving an attack, but surviving defending against an attack. So I like Gristlehide Dreg. I don't think it just belongs in Wounded Warrior or Wounded whatever. It's just a good choice to put into your decks, especially if you're looking for some draw power. Okay, Halls of the Dwemer. This is a 6-cost support. It's ongoing. The summon effect is that you put a 0/3 Dwarven Spider with Guard into your hand. Friendly Dwemer have +3/+0. So again, This is going top of niche. This is why you play Dwemer, essentially. You're getting a +3 buff for every single Dwemer that you have in your deck. So all of these guys over here get way better. Uh, the Blackreach Rebuilder, which was a 0/1 for 1, is now a 3/1 for 1 that has Prophecy Guard and gains you 2 health. I don't really need to explain all of them. Dwarven Ballista becomes an 8/5 with Breakthrough. These are how all of these Dwemer are balanced around, essentially. They're decent in any deck, but they become amazing in Dwemer-based decks. So Halls of the Dwemer is pretty insane, and I hate seeing it go down. It needs to be dealt with basically immediately. So again, I wouldn't say that this is S tier. It's S tier in Dwemer decks. It's top of niche though if we're talking specific tiers because it doesn't do anything if you don't have Dwemer in your deck. Okay, Haskell's up next. Haskell is a 4-cost 3/5, very similar to Cadwell the Betrayer. I think Cadwell's a great card. I don't think that he's doing anything too crazy, but again, like a lot of these Isle of Madness cards, he's a lot of fun. At the end of your turn, Haskell chooses a cost. When you play a card with the chosen cost, you draw a card. Then Haskell chooses a new cost. Again, I really like this. I think that he could either give you like a 12 cost that you're looking for, a 0 cost, or anything in between. So it is a bit RNG dependent, of course, but a lot of things in this game are, and you just kind of have to own that when you play Haskell. You could potentially draw 3 cards in a row with Haskell if you meet the right conditions for what he's looking for, or you could draw none for the entire game that he's out. So very high risk, low risk, high reward, basically, because you're still playing a creature with a great stat line for a decent cost. So I am totally okay to play Haskell down, and I include him in a lot of my lists. All right. Up next is Heroic Rebirth. This is a 3-cost support with 3 uses, and you, when you activate it, you transform a creature card in your hand into a random legend. So a legend is a card that is a unique legendary, basically. This is very good. I have no problems with this. I put this in solid right away. So you're generating, albeit a random legend, but a legend nonetheless. So I'm looking kind of at Luzra up here. I guess it depends on what you transformed, right? If you transformed like a Dwarven Dynamo and you got Luzra out of it, you might be kind of happy. But if you transformed like, I don't know, you transformed, let's look for a card that would be a good example. I don't know why you would do this, but if you transformed a Riften Pickpocket and then you got like the Adoring Fan, you'd be a little bit irritated, right? So it's case by case dependent, but I think in general, summoning a random unique legend is a good thing. It does require you to sacrifice one of your own cards for it, but you'll doubtless at least have one card that can be transformed. And then you get 2 extra tries on that if you got a legend that you're not happy with. Horned Helm is a 3-cost +2/+3 item. Again, it's fine. I don't have a problem with this. It is an item, but it's a fine item. If we look down, I think I put the steel sword, yeah, the iron sword in Y, and that's just because they can be generated by other sources. I don't really see a 2/3 stat line coming up all that often in Legends for items. So the Horned Helm has kind of its place. It does provide some good defense and some decent offense. So the only thing holding it back is that it is an item, I guess. Okay, Horse Armor. Let's be honest, Horse Armor is unplayable, but it is S tier in my heart. It's a 0-cost item +0/+1. The summon effect is that the wielder becomes premium. So this is a joke card. Horse Armor is basically the world's first DLC that was ever released. So we can thank Bethesda for rampant game monetization in the modern era. But aside from that, it's a joke on how the horse armor basically did nothing in Oblivion, but it cost real life money. So these are all exclusively premium cards, and yeah, the wielder becomes premium when you wear it. So all that it does is make your card look cool. And I mean, it's fun. It's a funny idea. It also does work in kind of it works in a very specific deck. Where's the card? Not the Master of Arms. It's the card that draws a card, the Dragonstar Rider. So when you equip an item to the Dragonstar Rider, he will draw a card for you. And if you have like this ridiculous chain of 0-cost or 1-cost cards with especially with the blacksmith, um, you can just draw a billion cards in a turn, and if you have a Sparksmith next to the Dragon Star Rider, um, you can deal like tons of damage to your opponent. It's a crazy combo, but I don't think that it brings Horse Armor out of unplayable. Ill-Fated Scholar is a 3-cost 3/2. When Ill-Fated Scholar is consumed, you summon a 3/2 Insidious Spirit. This is niche, just because you have to kind of be running cards that are going to be consuming. I think that there's better cards just stat line wise if you wanted to play something like this. And yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of this. I've never really used it myself, but I guess you're consuming to gain a card with the same stat line as the Ill-Fated Scholar, so it's a little bit like what's that card in Agility that does something very similar? I bet I put them in solid. Yeah, the Deshaan Avenger here. The last gasp effect is that you summon a 3/3 Deshaan Sneak, which is basically just this card recycling itself. If you're going to play anything along this line, I'd play the Deshaan Avenger if you have access to it in the colors that you're playing. Otherwise, the Ill-Fated Scholar seems to be a more complicated way of doing that for a less efficient creature. Illusory Mimic is a 6-cost 5/5. The summon effect is that Illusory Mimic gains all keywords that the top 3 cards of your deck have. This card is very niche, but I love it. You have to be running a deck that's chock full of keywords for this to actually work, because if you have a lot of actions in your deck, it also has to be very creature heavy. If you're running a lot of actions or supports or items in this deck, that lowers the chance that Illusory Mimic is going to gain a keyword. So it's a build around card. I have a deck that I'm pretty happy with. It's the Charger list on my channel, and I try to make use of Illusory Mimic in there by giving it charge every single time that it's played, essentially. If you don't get any keywords on this, it's still a 5/5 body, which is pretty good, so maybe he belongs in solid, but I still think you're not getting the maximum value out of this card unless you're building completely around it. So that's my take on the Illusory Mimic. I really like it, one of my favorite cards in the game, but definitely a little build around-ish. Okay, up next we have Jube. Jube is a 1/1 for 1 with the Slay effect of change Jube into Saint Jube the Eradicator of the Winged Menace. So this is a lore-related card. If anyone doesn't know, Jube is the prisoner on the ship with you at the beginning of Morrowind, and he goes on to kill all of the Cliff Racers in the Elder Scrolls series, which is pretty cool. So by killing something, you are turning Jube into Jube the Eradicator. Jube is not unplayable at all. Uh, I wouldn't even say he's Y. I would actually say that he's niche. I think you have to be playing Slay. There's a card that combos very well with Jube, which is the Night Mother. If you're playing something like that, just throwing Jube in as a 1-cost card is not the end of the world for your deck. He's also unique, and there's fun combos that can be done with Jube. So on the surface, he looks kind of stupid, but if you do get him to be that the Saint Jube, the Eradicator of the Winged Menace, he becomes a 5/5 that he's immune to Cliff Racers. So this whole card is kind of a meme, but I don't think it's actually a bad joke. It's a pretty good card to throw in if you can get that Slay off. Most of the time you're not going to be able to, but under the right conditions, the stars will align and you'll be able to get a kill off with him, and you'll be very happy. So the next card on our list is the Journey to Sovngarde, which is a 7-cost action that shuffles all creatures from your discard pile into your deck and gives them +5/+5. Okay, so on paper, this sounds really good. You're going to get all the cards back from your discard pile, and they're going to be shuffled back into your deck way, way more powerful than they were. The only downside with this is that if you're running a deck that summons a lot of trash in it. Like if you're running a Imperial based deck, let's say, that's going to be summoning a lot of recruits or grunts or whatever, you're not going to want those shuffled back into your deck. It's not going to feel very good to play a 6/6 Imperial grunt, even though it'll still be, it'll be a 6/6 for like nothing. You're wanting to get back your more powerful cards with this. So Journey, I'm putting it in great. It is always going to be a good thing typically to get a lot of your cards back into your deck, especially boosted up. But the cost of this is a little bit silly too, with 7. Not silly, I don't know. The cost is it doesn't allow you to combo it with a whole lot else on a single turn. You play a 7-cost card and it's like, okay, what else do I do with my turn? So it's taking up a lot of your turn. You're never really going to want to play this that early too. So if you draw it early, uh, you're going to probably have it in your hand for quite a while until a lot of your cards die and you feel like you can get that value out of Journey. Even if you can get like 15 creatures back into your deck, though, I would say play this thing. It's pretty good. So don't always try to maximize your value with it. You know, getting cards back into your discard pile or back from your discard pile is typically a good thing anyway. So for me, I don't really think to include this in a lot of lists, but I do think that it is a pretty powerful effect. And I think that it's a little bit more fair, even though it's a +5/+5 to everything coming back. It's a little bit more fair than like Reanimate and Midnight Burial because this stuff is being chosen to go back into your deck. It's not back into your hand, it's not being summoned back to the board or anything. It's just back in your deck and you'll see it when you see it again. So I like Journey, I think it's fine. Okay, Knife to the Throat. This is a 4-cost action that silences a creature and it draws a card. I think that so let's compare it to Mute up here. Okay, so this is a silence-based card. Mute is a silence-based card. I believe I put Hush somewhere over here as well. Maybe I put it in Y. I think I put Hush in Y. But this card is good because it gives you it silences a creature and it advances your hand by drawing a card. So it keeps you up on card advantage. However, the 4 cost is a little bit awkward, I will say. I like Knife to the Throat quite a bit. I'm gonna maybe just stick with it in Solid. It's a good option if you don't have access to silence. So this is a way that all colors can get silence effects. If you really feel like your deck is going to struggle, if you're playing like Monk, you could put Knife to the Throat in your list. In fact, I do see Knife to the Throat a lot in Monk now that I think about it, and it's a good way to stay up on tempo. So I think typically if you're just looking for a silence, you should play Mute, or you should play Shadowfen Priest, or a lot of the other options. But again, this has its place, and I do like it quite a bit. So that's my placement for it right there. Lunar Sway is up next. This is a 1-cost action, very similar to Fabricate. So the wax of this, though, is that you put a 3/3 Kate Rot in your hand, and the wane is that you put a 4/4 Doggy Rot with Guard into your hand. I think that this is specifically built for Wax Wane decks. I'm going to put it into Niche. I don't really see a reason to play this outside of that. Otherwise, I would just put in a 3/3 or a 4/4 guard in my deck rather than having to choose between both of them. So if you can get this thing to go off with Moongate, that's probably the way to play it. Okay, Lurking Crocodile, 2-cost 3/2 with Prophecy. This thing's just fine. It's a Prophecy card. It fits into a lot of different Prophecy-based lists. A lot of people use this thing just to get an early card down on the board as well. The 3/2, again, not a great stat line, but the Prophecy is doing a lot for that card. So that's the reason that you would play it. Loot, 1-cost item with a 1/2 stat line that it grants to the wielder, and the wielder is immune to silence. I'm thinking about S tier, but I'm also probably just going to land an A tier with this. Loot is a fantastic item because it makes your character immune to being silenced, and silence is one of the most obnoxious, aggressive, abrasive effects in the game because it just completely strips your card of all value and turns it into like a lame Corpus essentially. So you played 11 Magicka for your Devaith Fear, then it gets silenced next turn, well now you're just stuck with a 6/6 body. But if you play down Devaith Fear on turn 12 and then you spend that one extra Magicka to put a loot on him, he can't be silenced anymore, which is super, super nice. So I think that just with the cheap cost combined with the amazing effect, and it also gives you +1 attack and +2 defense for some reason. Like this could be a 0/0, it would probably still be good. But yeah, loot is pretty amazing, I would say, and fits up here with a lot of the big hitters, even though it is an item, and it does require a creature to be played onto. The low cost plus the value is really doing a lot for it there. And I don't think that it's quite the same as the guy down here. Where did I put him? I think he was in Niche. He's the guy that he will prevent all of your creatures that are equipped with an item from being silenced. The thing with him is that he himself, I think, can be hit with silence, and it just kind of sucks. So he's a cool card, but the loot, I think, is a little bit more efficient than that. Okay, Madness Beckons is a 1-cost It's a one-cost action that puts a random Isle of Madness card into your hand. Okay. Again, like, I guess the thing with this, I'll put it into niche because it's very similar to Gate of Madness in that it can give you a card for Unite the Houses. A lot of this stuff is going to be Unite the Houses-ish. And I don't know, I just have a soft spot for Cheesemancer. I keep going back to that. But yeah, Madness Beckons. Again, there's a lot of really good Isle of Madness cards, but it's if you really wanted one of them in particular, you would just put it in your deck, you know? So uh, do what you will with Madness Beckons. It's a good card for Unite the Houses, and that's probably about it. Okay, Maple Shield, zero cost item that grants a +0/+3 stat line to a card. I think this is why. I think there's probably better ways to grant defense in this game than with the Maple Shield. There's several items that we've talked about that can do this. There's several creatures that will grant ward to another creature as well, alongside just buffing up a creature through rallies or through Divine Fervor or some kind of board buff. I don't know, it's just going to be preferable to me than the Maple Shield. Now again, Maple Shield and all kind of items can fit in to specific item-based decks. But I just don't really think, I think that there's better options. I will say the biggest thing that this has going for it is the zero cost. The zero cost is really nice on that it's a flat defensive bonus for a card, but typically when I'm crafting an item deck, I'm not trying defensive, I'm trying to be offensive. And Maple Shield just doesn't quite do enough for me. It's only a +3 to defense. It's not very pressing for your opponent. Like if you just equip a Maple Shield, it's pretty easy to still get rid of a card. So I'm going to keep Maple Shield in Y. Mechanical Ally is up next. This is a 3-cost 3/3 with the summon effect of summon a Spider Worker if the top card of your deck is neutral. This is niche, I think. Flatly, a 3/3 for 3 is fine, but you're going to want to build around this to get the most out of it. You're going to want to build an entirely Dwemer-based deck around it, similar to the Brass Arquebus, because you want that Spider Worker to summon. Because the Spider Worker, of course, we haven't gotten to yet, but it draws a card, which is very nice. So if you can get that off, that's really the full reason that you're doing that card. Plus, it synergizes super well with Halls of the Dwemer, obviously. Okay, Mechanar's up next. 8-cost 4/4. The summon effect is that you stitch together the top creature of both decks to create an abomination and put it into your hand. So I think Mechanar, okay, he's not S, but he's probably A. The thing is, with Mechanar, he's going to steal something from your opponent, which is always, always, always a positive. The worst part about Mechanar, I think, is that he's an 8-cost 4/4. His own stat line feels very awkward to play sometimes when you're in the thick of things and your opponent is putting down stuff around turn 8 that you have to deal with. Putting down Mechanar can sometimes feel like a waste of tempo. But you steal something from your opponent, and you take a card from your deck and you draw it. So it gives you some draw power as well. Cards that are in your deck are typically going to be cards that you want to keep in your deck. So what Mechanar does is he draws a card for you, draws a card from your opponent, and you can essentially combine them. So you can choose which one you would like to have now. And this abomination will combine kind of their stat lines, it'll combine their cost, and it will choose one of their summon effects to do. This is really cool. I remember one time specifically with Mechanar, I think I have a screenshot of it somewhere that I won't put into this video because that's too much work, but I once pulled a Miraak from my deck and I pulled a Miraak from my opponent's deck. It was just crazy that we were able to both get the same card at the same time. Yeah, it's very effective at taking something from your opponent. So what Mechanar can do is, you know, he can take like unique cards out of your opponent's deck and then he won't be able to play with them anymore. It's always going to grab a creature. I believe it's the top creature is what it says. Yep. So yeah, it's just very RNG dependent on what kind of cards you pull out, but typically you'll always be able to get, at the very least, an enhanced version of one of the cards in your deck. So very, very fun card. And that card becomes transformed, so it doesn't really exist anymore. Both of the cards that were used to transform don't exist in the same sense that they did. Merchant's Camel is up next. This is a 4-cost 1/4 with the summon effect of look at the top 3 cards of your deck, draw 1 card, and you discard the others. Merchant's Camel's really good. It's a great option if you're trying to dig through your deck for something specific. It is a little bit low on the stat line side, but you're not playing it for the stat line, you're playing it for quick draw power. This will show you 3 cards, you get to take one. Not very often do you get the option to choose something specific from your deck. This can be a little bit annoying when you're trying to dig for something specific and you just can't find it, and then you're throwing away a bunch of stuff from your deck. But Merchant's Camel does synergize well with a lot of discard pile stuff as well. You can throw some stuff away, get it back later. Really, really good actually with Journey to Sovngarde because you're getting rid of more stuff in your deck. So that can be cool. There are some dilemmas that you might have sometimes with Merchant's Camel where you have to decide which card is, do I need more in this moment and which card am I going to get rid of? But yeah, it's so much knowledge that you're getting about your deck and you're thinning out the herd as well. I really like Merchant's Camel. I think it's a great draw option. Okay, Midnight Snack, 2/2 for 2. Prophecy and Guard, Last Gasp, reduce the cost of a random dragon in your hand by 1. I'm actually going to put Midnight Snack into Solid. He's a 2/2 for 2 with Prophecy and Guard, which on its own, if you're playing like Singleton or something, throw Midnight Snack in. Why not? He's going to reduce the cost of a dragon if you have one, which is like a nice bonus effect. But he's also, like I said, he's got Prophecy and Guard. He's just a very solid early game card and shouldn't really be confined just to the one deck that he's supposed to be in because of that last gasp effect on there. He's kind of an annoying card when he crops up because he's just, like I said, he's pretty decent and he feels like he should be in one type of deck, but I really don't think that he needs to be confined to that type of deck. Similar to all of these Dwemer that we talked about, I don't think they just need to be found in Dwemer lists. And another thing that I have neglected to mention, all of these would be good to get in Arena. All of these cards that we've talked about up here. I would not mind to see any of these in Arena. Even a lot of these niche cards, it's like, okay, if you pulled them in Arena, you wouldn't be too upset about it. You can kind of build around some of those anyway. Okay, Moongate. Moongate is a 1-cost support with 3 uses, and when you activate it, you get both Wax and Wane effects this turn. This is going to go up into Top of Niche. This is a support that dictates an entire playstyle of a type of deck. So some Khajiit have the effect of Wax and Wane, or some cards, I guess, with Lunar Sway as well. Don't just have to be Khajiit, but typically they are. They have Wax and Wane. So what that means is that on some turns, or on one turn, it alternates every turn. But on one turn, they'll have the Wax effect when they're played. On the next turn, they'll have the Wane effect when they're played. Moongate allows you to negate that, and you get 2 effects from your card at once. And many of these cards are balanced around Moongate. A lot of them are not so balanced around Moongate, and it feels kind of bad to play against them sometimes. You can get really disgusting value with some of the Khajiit with Moongate. I don't really have any on deck that I can show you, but there are some good options out there. I don't really play Wax Wane. I notoriously don't really like Khajiit, so just don't play with them. But yeah, Wax Wane certainly good. I have not. Or I've gotten my butt kicked a lot by someone putting down a Moongate early on in the game and then getting good value out of it because you can't get rid of it. Okay, Mordecai the Deathless, 5-cost 5/5. Summon if you started the game with no duplicate cards in your deck. You gain 5 health and you restore a rune. Mordecai is also top of niche. We've had a lot of top of niche today. Mordecai specifically belongs in Singleton decks where you don't have any duplicate cards. It's 50 cards that are unique in that list. Don't have to be 50 legendary unique cards in that sense, but 50 cards that are not duplicated at all. But 50 cards that are not duplicated at all. And yeah, I mean, restoring a rune is such a powerful effect. I believe there are only 2 cards in the whole game that can do that. So Mordecai being one of them, and the Mechanical Heart, which we'll talk about last, I think, with Willpower being the last color that we'll discuss. But yeah, super, super good card in the deck that he's in. You cannot build a Singleton list without Mordecai. It is not allowed. I mean, technically it is, but you shouldn't. Mudcrab Ankle Snapper is a 2-cost 3/2 with the summon, deal 1 damage to your opponent. Again, we're putting him in niche simply because of old Salty's Assault. Not too much more to say about that. This card actually is decent. Actually, I will take him out of niche. Why not? Um, he's decent just because of that deal 1 damage to your opponent. This can actually help out in some Empower-based lists where you're trying to hit your opponent and get a little bit of juice on your Empower cards. I personally don't ever use this thing really, but again, I can see a world where this would be effective. If you have a few Forked Bolts or Mage's Tricks or something, and then you hit your opponent in the face, you could finish it off with a Mudcrab Ankle Snapper, get some of your cards down. This also synergizes with Pilfer, so maybe it is a bit better I was thinking that it is initially. It's a pretty solid choice, and it's a very decent early game card for that initial poke. Mudcrab Merchant. This is a 1-cost 1/2 with the summon effect of the Mudcrab Merchant shows you 2 cards he has for sale. You choose one to put in your hand, and you put the other in your opponent's hand. This might sound goofy at first, but the Mudcrab Merchant's actually pretty good. Um, he'll generate, like I said, 2 cards for you to see, and you get to choose from them. So anytime, again, that you're given a choice on what you can put into your deck or what you can draw out of your deck is good. And I mean, the Mudcrab can provide some really, really fun board states. I had one time, I think it was, he showed me Abner Tharn and like, forget what other card it was. It was some other legendary. It might have been like Irene or something. And I had to choose which one do I want more in this instance. And so I got one, my opponent got the other, and then we just had to sort of play it out from there. Super, super cool card. It can be fun too if you draw something like Siege of Stros Mackay, and then you can give that to your opponent, and then that's just dead weight in their hand. So fun stuff like that can crop up with the Mudcrab Merchant. It's a bit more tactical than it seems, and it's a really good turn 1 card. The 1/2, I believe it used to be a 2/2 or a it had some crazy different stat line. It might have been a 2/1, but it was way better because of that early damage that it had, and I think they nerfed it. Also, he's got the helmet from For Honor on the front there, which is fun. Okay, the Warden's helmet from For Honor. I mean, it's not actually, but it looks like it. Okay, Mundus Stone is up next. This is a 4-cost support. I lost it. Where did it go? It is. Yeah, 4-cost support, ongoing. When you summon a creature, you give it a random keyword. Mundus Stone is S tier. It has been, from what I remember, the most popular card in the game since the game's release. It's very strong. I just recorded a arena run that I need to put up on the channel soon. Not an arena run, an event run. I recorded an event run that I need to put up on the channel soon, and I got some disgusting value with the Mundus Stone. It made me feel physically ill at a certain point from how lucky I was getting. It's just a total RNG machine. If you roll like on Odahviing, for example, if you roll lethal on him, it is just lights out for your opponent. There's some cards that you can run charge on that should never have charge. It just grants keywords that cards shouldn't have, and it applies it before the summon effect procs of whatever you put down. So if something like the Supreme Atromancer gets Drain, then that's good because then it's going to be summoning stuff and dealing damage and gaining you health. So yeah, keywords are very powerful, and the machine that just grants keywords to everybody is also definitely powerful. Okay, up next is Namira's Shrine. At the end of your turn, if you played 4 cards this turn, you draw a card. Namira's Shrine is very niche. I think it used to be better. I believe it used to make you draw 3 cards. Now it makes you draw 4, or play 4, my bad. So it's a card that you have to build around entirely to get any kind of value out of it, really. You are going to have a deck that's got a lot of uh, really low cost creatures in it as well, or creatures that are very heavily reduced. So I guess the Ghost Fanatic might be something that you could pair pretty well with the Namira's Shrine potentially. But uh, I I don't know. I've tried to get Namira's Shrine to work. It just doesn't really seem to ever want to go off when I play with it. So it's a card that I'm hopeful that people can make effective decks with. I'm just not very good at it, I guess. Okay, Oblivion Invasion, 0-cost card that just invades. This is niche. It's made for invade. Odahviing, 12 cost, 10/10 dragon. Summon, deal 4 damage to all enemy creatures. Odahviing is great. He's a very good end game card. You can put him down. I think of the legendary dragons that we've got, he's probably the weakest one now. But essentially, what he's giving you is an Ice Storm with 1 more damage, or playing a 10/10 creature. So you're getting 2 really nice effects for 1 card, and he's got this massive body that needs to be dealt with immediately. Now, like the Dwarven Colossus, he can just be killed with a random piercing javelin. He could catch a stray like that, but that's okay because you already got some value put him down. So Odahviing, big body, scary, provides an effect immediately, and must be dealt with. So pretty much all the hallmarks of a good card. Old Salty's Assault. This is a 5-cost action. Summon one of each Mudcrab from your deck. So Old Salty's Assault being only 5 cost is pretty crazy. This is again, we've had a lot of these in neutral. This is kind of top of niche. So this, and that might sound stupid, but the Mudcrab decks can actually be pretty effective and pretty wild when you get all these Mudcrabs coming out at once. You get the Mudcrab Merchant to come out, you get the Ankle Snapper to come out, and all these other guys. So you generate a lot of tempo all at once with only a 5-cost card, and you get way more than 5 cost out of it. I have yet to do a Mudcrab deck on the channel because they're kind of cheesy, but maybe I'll have to do it at some point. I know people really enjoy the Mudcrab decks. Orb of Vermina, 6-cost support with 3 uses. The activate effect is that you draw a copy of a random card from your opponent's deck. This is another S tier card, guys. We've got a lot of very interesting cards in neutral, I think. So the Orb of Vermina, being able to take something from your opponent is good. This is not taking something, though. This is copying. So your opponent is bound to have made a deck that they're at least fairly proud of, and being able to pull some cards out of that into your own deck is cool. You can get potentially extra legendary cards from this if your opponent is running a Devaith Fear. This is a good way to be able to grab an extra copy of one or something like that. This card works very well for Unite the Houses type decks. This card can be comboed with Tower Alchemist, like any of the activate cards. Any of the activate supports can be comboed with Tower Alchemist and Cauldron Keeper to get really good value out of it. And I think that just in general, drawing cards, going down to Goldbrand here, drawing cards is a little bit more efficient and useful than dealing just straight creature damage. So I really like Orb of Vermina. I still really like Goldbrand. It's just not my favorite when compared to like some of the other supports that you could run. And again, Orb, it's 6 cost too. It's 1 cheaper than Goldbrand if we're going to compare the two. And you're getting a card immediately when you play it. So there's some good value going on there with the Orb of Vermina. Okay, Paarthurnax, 12 cost 9/9. The summon effect is that you put 3 random shouts into your hand and reduce their cost to 0. Okay, so Paarthurnax is also S tier. The thing with Paarthurnax is that he can summon, this is the big problem with Paarthurnax, he can summon Soul Tears at a 0 cost. And he can use those to summon himself back from the discard pile. You really have to be careful with Paarthurnax because there's a famous kind of term, and that's a Paarthurnax loop. So it's where Paarthurnax dies, or Paarthurnax is summoned, he summons a Soul Tear as one of his 3 shouts. He dies, you use the Soul Tear, you bring Paarthurnax back, and then he shuffles another Soul Tear in. This is a potentially endless cycle where you're going to have to keep continually killing the same Paarthurnax over and over again, and it just gets way worse. The same problem exists with Alduin, or with Paarthurnax that does with Alduin with Midnight Burial, where, again, I'll read it. Choose a creature in your deck, create a copy of that creature in your discard pile, and give it +1/+1. Midnight Burial also has Betray, so you can kill a creature to duplicate this effect. Because you get to choose the creature, many people, what they do is they'll put an Alduin in their discard pile, then they'll put Paarthurnax. They do Reanimate on Alduin. Alduin comes back, destroys the whole board, and then the next turn he summons a Paarthurnax to the board. This is a wicked, wicked combo that needs to be nerfed, but it probably never will. And it's the biggest reason why Paarthurnax is S tier. Other than that, other than Soul Tear, all of the other shouts that he could summon are really good. He's not going to summon Call Dragon because that got added after Paarthurnax and they have not updated the card, so that's a plus. But also when you take into account the fact that Call Dragon at max level can summon Paarthurnax, that's another problem in and of itself. You've got now potentially 2 Paarthurnax, or if you have this thing max level, 2 to 3 to 4 Paarthurnax in one game, which is just ridiculous and it's too much. Galen can shuffle more of these guys in, so this is a big problem. Paarthurnax is a big problem, and neutral, I'm starting to realize, has a lot of balance issues. which we'll get more into the later we go. Okay, up next is the Painted World. This is a 12 cost action. It costs 2 less for each attribute you have in play, and it costs 2 less if you have a neutral card in play, since neutral is not considered an attribute. Summon a Painted Troll in each lane. What a Painted Troll is also, it's a, I believe, a 4/4 creature that generates a random attribute when it's played. So Painted World is actually I was going to put it in niche before I played a deck recently that made a good utilization of Painted World with uh, the Spider Layer deck that I did that was on uh, Thin White Duke's idea on my stream. And also, Thin White Duke just started a YouTube channel where he was uploading Legend stuff, so I will leave a link in the description for you guys to go check him out. Also, I've been forgetting to mention, I'm so sorry, Vincenzo and Sly Boogie were the ones that I initially started doing this with, or discussing, about this, so I will leave links to their channels in the description as well. But yeah, Painted World, 12 cost action that gets reduced. You can potentially play this for like 4 or 6 very easily, and you generate 2 creatures with random attributes. It could be used in both Unite the Houses and in kind of Haunted Manor type decks, which is the way that we used it in that Spider Layer video, where the second one that gets summoned can get a buff from the Haunted Manor. You can also do stuff with, obviously, Mundus Stone would put keywords on these guys. There's plenty of ways to buff creatures up just normally, so the Painted World, all in all, is a very solid card. Okay, Portcullis is a 5 cost 0/9 with Prophecy and Guard, and this thing's just solid. I wouldn't put it any higher than this, but there's a lot of different stuff that you can do with the Portcullis. For one, this thing's, I think, the highest defensive creature under like 10 cost. Uh, I mean, granted, it doesn't do any damage, but you can put items on here. One Daedric Dagger makes this thing very obnoxious. One Hackwing Feather makes this thing very obnoxious. So any keywords that the Portcullis gains are going to be good. Plus, it's got Prophecy. Plus, when you factor in the Ring of Imaginary Might, which again, Portcullis is just a pick on this thing. Portcullis is a way better option to use than the Blue Claw Matron if you're trying to do some type of Ring of Imaginary Might list. So yeah, lots of different avenues that Portcullis can go, and I think that it is a super duper fun way to play if you're trying to be defensive. Okay, Prized Chicken. This is a 0/1 for 5 with Last Gasp of Fill this lane with 1/1 Angry Villagers. This is very similar to the Giant Chicken, except it's just kind of a little bit worse. By a little bit worse, I mean a lot worse. I think if you're just using this here, we're going to put Prize Chicken in Y. It's not unplayable because of the 1/1 Angry Villager thing, but I think if you are going to play either of these, you should play the Giant Chicken, just because you're getting a 5/5 on the board rather than a 0/1. And yeah, you're waiting 2 extra turns to play this because of the 7 Magicka, or the 7 Magicka versus the 5. But I don't know. I find Giant Chicken to be a very compelling card for some reason, and I find Prize Chicken to not be as compelling. So that's my answer for that. Also, if you're just using this to get the Angry Villagers, just play Imperial Reinforcements. Just please. It's a way better way to do this. Raging Horker. Okay, Raging Horker is a 2 cost 1/3. When Raging Horker takes damage, it gains +1/+1. I think this card's just flatly solid. It doesn't necessarily belong in Wounded Warrior, although that's where it thrives. Much like the Gristlehide Dreg, this thing can get value just on its own. It's a very solid early game card that can trade with a lot of early game cards as well. And the fact that it's gaining power for getting damaged is cool. Ravenous Crocodile is a 2 cost 3/4. The summon effect is you must deal 2 damage to a friendly creature. Again, I see no real problem with this. It fits best in Wounded Warrior, but it's not bad on its own. The 3/4 stat line is really good, and that's why you have to deal 2 damage to a friendly creature. Most of the time you'll be dealing the 2 damage to the Ravenous Crocodile to get that early game 2 cost 3/2, which is a stat line that we've seen with some of our clowns down here in the Y category, 2 cost 2/3, or 3 cost 2, any of that junk. But the thing that makes this different is the versatility of dealing that damage. So that is going to be a factor with some cards. You may want one of your last gasp creatures to die so you can kill them with this. You may want something to proc on, like the Gristlehyde Dreg. You may want something to proc like that, or the Raging Horker. So wounding your own creatures does have a place, but it's not the only way to use this card. You can't just wound yourself and get a decent card down early. So that's the basic premise with why Ravenous Crocodile is okay. All right, Reachman Shaman is a 2-cost 2/2. At the start of your turn, you give another random friendly creature +1/+1. So the word another there, of course, means that it's going to be buffing something other than the Reachman Shaman. I think this card is cool. It prevents, or it, not prevents, it provides a immediate threat. That is that cards are going to be buffed. If this thing is down by itself, that's not really how it should be. You should play this card after you've already played another card, and that way it will guaranteed buff onto something. But yeah, Reachman Shaman is one of these cards that can potentially spiral out of control. So as long as you have this down, it's going to be irritating your opponent and providing you with value. So I don't really think that it's bad in any way, and I quite like it. It's also got a very fair stat line, 2/2 for 2. Okay, Reflective Automaton, 2-cost 2/3, and Reflective Automaton has all creature types. I think this card's also solid. A 2-cost 2/3 is again a stat line that we've clowned on before, but he's not really. I wouldn't call him niche, I guess. Well, okay, I will throw him in niche because here's the reason that you run this thing. You run him to get the buffs from other cards that boost tribal types. So let's say that you don't have enough dragons in your dragon type deck, you can put the Reflective Automaton in that deck and he will act as a dragon. So he will get the Woodland Lookout, for example, to gain you 4 health, even though he's technically not a dragon, he has that creature type. The Ancient Lookout, he'll get the Ancient Lookout to summon a Draugr Sentry with Guard. You could put him in Tribal Skeleton. He would get a buff from the Skeleton Champion. So he's a tribal card that fits in decks that don't have enough of the tribal creature that they want, essentially. And 2/3 for 2 isn't bad when it comes with an extra effect. Okay, the Ring of Lordship is a 1-cost item with a +0/+2 stat line that it grants, and it's got the effect of your creatures with the same type as the wielder cost 1 less. This is again kind of niche. It's a tribal based card, and it's something that you're going to want to put in, tribal Dunmer maybe, or tribal Argonian, or tribal Nord potentially. But yeah, I mean it's decent. I like that it gives a little bit of defense, and it's a very cheap card. This would work really well, I think, in item-based Redguard. Um, Battle Mage type things because it's an item. So cool beans with that. Okay, Set's Masterwork is up next. This is a 3-cost support that's ongoing. If you started the game with no duplicate cards, your cards cost 1 less. I'm actually not going to put this as high as Mordecai, but Set's Masterwork is still niche. So it is along the same lines as Mordecai, where it only works if you didn't start the game if you started the game with no duplicate cards in your deck. And it's just going to be a flat 1-cost reduction in everything, which is really nice. It can be a very helpful way to get your singleton decks moving a little bit quicker. So Set's Masterwork is very good. I know some people don't include Set's Masterwork in their singleton lists, but I figure there's no real reason not to half of the time unless you're really trying to get that Mushroom Tower combo to go off with Siege of Stros M'Kai, which I understand. Okay, Shadowmere is up next, a 1-cost 1/1 with charge, and the last gasp effect of shuffle Shadowmere into your deck and give it +3/+3 and increase its cost by 3. I'm actually going to put Shadowmere in S tier. I really, really like Shadowmere. It's not maybe as broken as some of these cards, but I've had times where I kill something with Shadowmere and then the next turn I draw it as a 4/4 with charge. Granted, the cost does go up, so that's something that you need to be aware of. At some point, Shadowmere, because it goes from a 1-cost to a 4-cost to a 7-cost to a 10-cost, the next one will be a 13-cost. So if you don't have enough Magicka to play it, you will have a 13/13 for 13 in your hand. With charge, though, so I mean, it's pretty cool. The main thing with Shadowmere is you want to make sure this doesn't get silenced, otherwise, you will be very sad. But it can be really fun to you know, uh, shuffle more of these into your deck or do a Dark Rebirth on them or whatever. Very, very fun combos can come out of Shadowmere. And I think just as an early game card too, it's very nice to kind of get things rolling, and it can even help you because of that charge. It can help you kill your opponent sometimes if they're just like one shot away from dying. So very versatile, very cool card. Okay, up next is the Siege Crawler. This is a 11 cost 15/15 with Breakthrough, and I don't quite know where to put this. I mean, I think I'd just say that it's solid because it really does belong in Invade. It's a Daedra, so it's going to benefit from the Invade cards, and if you can get this thing down with a high Oblivion Portal, you can potentially roll charge on this, and then you have just a gigantic, ridiculous creature. It doesn't go to quite the same lengths as Odahviing or Dwarven Colossus, though, which are huge creatures, but they provide some kind of benefit. Um, Siege Crawler is really banking on the fact that you're going to pull some keyword off of it. And it actually already does have Breakthrough, making it easy to uh, break through your opponent's guards and do face damage already. So it increases the chances that you're going to get a keyword like Ward or Lethal or Charge on this thing when you play it, even if you just have a Mundus Stone or something like that, which is kind of neat. But I think baseline, it's a very powerful creature. It's I think the most powerful outside of Alduin. Does it have more power than Alduin? Yeah, it has more attack power than Alduin. So I think it is the highest damaging card in the game, but it can be taken out by so much. Fell the Mighty, any lethal creature, Piercing Javelin, Edict of Azura, anything can take this thing out, and then you've just wasted your turn. So it doesn't provide any immediate value like the other ones do, and it's really banking on Invade, but it doesn't necessarily belong in there. Like, if you just need an 11 cost card, you could play that. It'd be fine. Okay, Siege of Stros M'Kai, 10 cost. Again, top of niche. You would only play this in Singleton. But what this card does is if you started the game with no duplicate cards in your deck, you draw a random creature, item, support, and action from your deck. So this thing can potentially give you insane value. We just played a Singleton unique list on the channel, and I was able to actually draw Alduin on this. Normally, I wouldn't have even been able to have played Alduin in my deck. We were just doing something stupid because he's a 20 cost, but the fact that I played this, I got him to be able to be played for free, which was nuts. And I think I got like upwards of 40 Magicka worth out of one cast of Siege of Stros M'Kai. Siege can also be duplicated by Thorana. There's a pretty infamous Thorana Mushroom Tower Siege thing that you can do where you play Siege with a Mushroom Tower out. If Thorana is out, she will shuffle copies of Siege into your deck, and you can potentially pull another Siege of Stros M'Kai off of the Siege of Stros M'Kai that you betray with the Mushroom Tower. So really, really crazy combo. But yeah, Siege is super good. It just belongs in Singleton. Silent Pilgrim up next, 3 cost 1/1. The summon effect is that you draw a random multi-attribute card from your deck. Much like the Greybeard Mentor, I'm going to put this in niche. Much like the Greybeard Mentor, this can be used to pull out something very specific. If you had a deck that was reliant on one multi-attribute card, like Spell Sword with General Tullius, for example, you could throw in one or two Silent Pilgrims that you really want to pull that Tullius out with, and you'd be guaranteed to get him every time. Now, these cards do run out of usefulness when the multi-attribute cards in your deck are gone, so that's something to keep in mind, but there's a lot of different niche cases for this thing. It's obviously one of these cards that's not meant to be intimidating or anything like that when you play it down, but it's meant to serve its purpose, and its purpose is to pull that random multi-attribute card out. It can also, like a lot of these cards, be used to pull something out for Unite the Houses specifically. So another interesting point to note. Okay, up next is the Skeevaton. It's a 2/2 for 3, and the summon effect is +1/+1 for each other Skeever summoned this game. I'm going to be honest, Skeevatons, I don't know why you would play this. All the all that you're doing with this is you're getting a Skeever. Like if you're playing Skeevers and you've shuffled in 10 Skeevers or something, right? So you get a 10/10 Skeever. If you play a Skeevaton, um, well, okay. I guess that you'd be getting like a 22 cost Skeevaton, or not cost, 22 damage, 22 defense Skeevaton at that point, because if you played 10 Skeever infestations, you play 20 Skeevers. I guess that kind of makes sense, but I'll be honest, in my Skeever video that I have on the channel, I don't think that I used Skeevatons in it. I didn't really quite like them that much, but I will put them in niche because obviously there's a deck that they are made for specifically. So we'll keep them up there, but for me personally, I don't really like them that much, but I will submit they do have a purpose. Okay, Skooma Cat's Whimsy is up next. This is a 1 cost ongoing support. Your cards that didn't start in your deck cost 1 less. This is a little bit niche, but it's also just universally pretty good. So if you have a card that has generated another card, period, in your hand or whatever, then that card will be 1 less in cost. Just anything that didn't start in your deck. So this could be an item, action, support, or a creature. For example, like Temple Conjurer, this is going to be a very niche case here, but Temple Conjurer summons a Flame Atronach that's a 5/3. If that Flame Atronach were to get bumped back into your hand, I believe the way Skooma Cat's Whimsy would rule that is that it would cost 1 less to play back out. So that's just kind of an example that I can provide you by looking at some of the cards up here. Same thing with like Barbas for fetch, where he finds a random Daedra. That Daedra would be reduced in cost. And so Skooma Cat's Whimsy can be used for a multitude of things, mostly Unite the Houses because you're looking for a lot of randomly generated cards, but it can be used to great effect for many different cases in this game. I just think that it's overall a solid card, probably not going to be the best option in every deck, but it's not necessarily confined to one deck like a lot of the niche cards. Slaughterfish Spawning, 4-cost action that summons a slaughterfish in each lane, and these slaughterfish, they gain +2 attack every turn that they're out. It's a pretty solid card. I'd say that it's a pretty intimidating thing. I mean, they only have 1 defense, which is kind of how this is balanced, but they ramp up, and they can be pretty scary if your opponent plays this on turn 3 or 4, like 3 with the ring or 4 or whatever. You're going to have a problem on your hand if you don't have like an Ice Storm or a Mage's Trick or some way to get rid of these Slaughterfish. So, very, very scary card to have played on you early, I guess. Something that your opponent definitely has to deal with. Okay, Soul Burst is up next. This is a 13 cost action that costs 1 less for each unique creature in your discard pile. What you do with Soul Burst is you banish a creature, then you deal 3 damage to all enemies. I thought it was 3. Soul Burst. Yeah. So you deal 3 damage to all enemies, and that's including your opponent's like actual face value. So you'll deal 3 damage to them, and then all enemy creatures on the board. So it's a very cool card. A bit niche because you have to be playing a lot of unique cards to actually get the full value of it. So I think I'll keep it in niche. I would say most people don't just think to throw this in their decks, and that's for good reason. It's a 13 cost, so in a regular deck that doesn't have any ramping, you will not be able to play this unless a unique creature has died. Typically in my lists, I try to include like 3 or 4 unique creatures, so this thing's still going to come down to like a 10 to 9 cost in most of my decks. So not necessarily the best card to have, but if you have a unique list, it's a very fun card to throw in. Okay, up next, Sparkling Spider. This is a 4-cost 2/3 with Prophecy and Guard. Nothing really all that wrong with this card, I guess. I don't know. It's okay. You know, it's fine. I think I'd probably put it niche. There's other cards that do this though. I mean, there's oh, where's the guy? I have him somewhere down here. Yeah, City Guard. City Guard does the same thing as this. Really. It's just that Sparkling Spider you would only play in niche. Or you'd only play Sparkling Spider in Dwemer-based decks where it would be a 5/3 with Halls of the Dwemer down, and it would synergize with some of your other Dwemer type cards. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it doesn't really impress me all that much. I mean, in Prophecy decks, it can be okay, and the fact that it's neutral is doing a lot for it here. I think that just with like City Guard, for example, not really the best kind of case here because it's in purple specifically and it's in Imperial. Um, this card type and creature type is going to be a little bit more effective at doing its job, I think. Okay, Spider Worker, 0/1 for 2 with Prophecy. Summon, draw a card. Yeah, this card is just, again, I'll say that it's niche because it fits in Dwemer decks and stuff pretty well, and Dwemer can be very powerful. But normally I wouldn't really run this. I think that the Guildsworn Apprentice is a much better way to have a Prophecy draw a card. So maybe even Y when Guildsworn Assassin or Guildsworn Assassin, Guildsworn Apprentice exists. Spider Worker doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but again, the thing that's working for it is that it's neutral, so it can go into any kind of deck that might need that extra draw power. Starsong Bard, 3 cost 2/3, which is immune to silence, and your unique cards cost 1 less. She is very niche. She's basically just there for unique build around decks, and that is about that. She combos very well with Soul Burst, for example. Up next, the Steam Constructor, 2 cost 2/2. Summon. If you have a neutral card in your hand, you summon a 1/1 reconstructed spider. Yeah, definitely niche. A lot of these cards we're going to be steamrolling through because they're very niche. The card that it creates is the reconstructed spider, which is right here. The black, or no, not the Black Reach Rebuilder. Where is that guy? Hold on. Oh, reconstructed spider. I guess I don't know what that is. Maybe that's a unique card to this, but he's going to be summoning more Dwemer essentially, which are going to be useful again with Halls of the Dwemer. So that is that. Okay, Stolen Pants. Stolen Pants is up next. It's a 2 cost 1/1. The summon effect is that you summon a 0/1 Sheepish Dunmer in the other lane. The last gasp is that you give Sheepish Dunmer his pants. Divorced from the iconic Stolen Pants Gardener of Pants combo, I do actually think Stolen Pants is still good because it's generating a creature on the board alongside an item buffing up one of your creatures. And the last gasp is that you're going to give that item back to that other creature. So on face value, you're kind of recycling this card around. And when you start playing with this more, you learn the ways that it can be super effective. So this combos pretty well with a lot of different cards. It combos pretty well with the Marauder Chieftain that can buff itself up anytime a creature gets buffed near it or whatever. So I don't know. There's lots of different ways that Stolen Pants can be useful. It's not as silly of a card as it may seem at first. There's lots of different ways and branching pathways that it can be really good, but on its own, not bad at all. Okay, the Stronghold, what does that say? Eradicator? I don't even know if I've ever seen this card before. Oh no, I have. Summon effect, give all enemy creatures in this lane guards. This is a 6/6 for 5, very niche case kind of card, but it's cool. And actually, the stat line is very decent. I think I'll still throw it in niche because there's not going to be that many times that you want your opponent's lane to be all guarded up. But what this can do, and I've done this before with this card, is it can get creatures out of hiding in the shadow lane or hiding with cover. So the ideal way to do this is that you play this in the shadow lane to unveil some of your opponent's creatures that they've been hiding, and then you could use like a lethal creature or a lethal factotum or something to go in and get the kill on whatever's been bothering you in the game. It's also a 6/6 for 5. That's a pretty crazy stat line. So I would say that it's still probably niche. But you know what? Let's put it up into solid, because you could play this thing when your opponent doesn't have any cards out, and then you just get a 6/6 for 5. So the summon effect can be both positive and negative, and it just depends on your situation, I guess. Okay, the Stronghold Incubator, I think is what that says. 3/3 for 5. Last gasp is that you put 2 random Dwemer into your hand. So the fact that this is random Dwemer is actually, I don't know, it kind of works for it because one of the random Dwemer that you could get is our boy up here, the oh yeah, I put him down here, is the Dwemer Colossus. So you could get him. I think you could potentially also get Yagram Bagarn, which is kind of funny. Um, 3 for 5, we've seen worse stat lines for sure. And I mean, it is generating value for you when it dies. So honestly, like it's okay. I think it belongs. It's one of these cards that it's like it's all right if you play it in a different deck, but you probably shouldn't. He probably belongs in niche, but he could weasel his way out just on card generation alone. And especially like those random Dwemer you're putting into your hand, that could combo also with something like Skooma Cat's Whimsy. So there's definitely a spot for that card elsewhere. Okay, up next is the Night Mother, 2-cost support that essentially what this does is it provides an extra win condition to the board state for you. So it has a unlimited amount of activations, and what its activate is that it summons a 0/1 target, which has guard for your opponent. Now, what I said earlier about Chalmun Keep activating the Night Mother is very similar to what the Night Mother herself does. The Night Mother summons targets for you to kill because after you've killed 20 of your opponent's cards while the Night Mother is out, the Night Mother will deal 20 damage to your opponent, gain you 20 health, and then it will draw you up to 10 cards as much as you need to fill up your hand. So this is essentially a alternate win condition. Rather than killing your opponent through face damage, you can get them down to 20 health, and then all you have to do is kill 20 of their creatures. Now, Night Mother can get eliminated pretty easily, but I actually think that the Night Mother is a great choice for just a filler card in any deck. If you're at like 49 cards and you can't think of another card to put in, and maybe you're the kind of deck that has like a lot of ice storms or a lot of like board wipe type things, throw in the Night Mother. It's fun. You just generate these targets and stuff, and you can get some value from it. You just want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on how many cards you need to kill in order to keep up with that win condition. But other than that, it's actually a lot of fun, and I really like the alternate win condition. Okay, we're almost there. The Ruby Throne is up next. This is a 3-cost support. It's ongoing. The summon effect is that you crown a creature. At the end of each player's turn, the given creature gains +1/+1. If there's no creature that's been crowned after that creature has been destroyed, the next creature that's unique, that's summoned, will gain a crown. Very niche. I love the Ruby Throne, one of my favorite cards. I love the idea of it. It's super fun, but again, very niche. So at the end of every turn also is crazy because uh, this card is going to be getting like a +1/+1 buff every single time a player passes a turn. And the same is going to be for whatever creature gets the crown next. This is actually a super effective way of getting Jube able to kill somebody, because you give him that crown, and then by the time it's back to your turn, he's a +3/+3 instead of a +1/+1. So yeah, the Ruby Throne, destined to be in unique based decks. It's a very risky gambit to put this thing in a normal deck with like 3 to 4 uniques. So because your opponent could always get that buff, and then you're screwed. So yeah, it's fun though. Very fun card. Okay, Training Grounds, 4-cost support ongoing. When you summon a creature, you give it +1/+1 if it shares a type with the top creature in your deck. Training Ground is another one of these cards that's probably the top of niche. Training Grounds can combo really well with like Halls of the Dwemer because it's going to be buffing up any creatures that are the same type as the creatures in their deck. So if you have like a full Factotum list, a full Dwemer list, if you have a full Nord, Argonian, Dunmer, Khajiit, any kind of those, Imperial works very well with Imperial lists. This is going to be a super big help, and this can combo really well with stuff like Divine Fervor as well to give an extra +1/+1 on top of all the other +1/+1 stuff that's in the game already. So very, very good card for tribal type decks. Maybe a little bit unbalanced in some senses, but it's fine. It's fine for what it is. Okay, Treasure Map is up next. This is a 3-cost item that grants a +1/+1 stat line, and it draws a card. Now, if the wielder has Treasure Hunt, you draw something that they're hunting for instead. I really like Treasure Map. I think it's just a solid good card. It combos very well with treasure map type abilities, but also can be used to great effect to just keep your draw up and keep buffing creatures up and whatnot. So uh, definitely has its decks that it's stronger in, but any card that's going to draw you something is going to be pretty good typically. Tullius Conscription is up next. This is a 12 cost action, and you summon one of each creature from your deck that has 2 cost or less. Now, Conscription used to be a lot more frequent that you would see. It's not so much anymore. I hardly see people play Conscription. Now, it's fun when you do play it, but it is a card that you have to build your entire deck around. Whereas Altar of Despair, you had to build your deck in sort of ascending order with some small creatures stacked at the beginning. Tullius Conscription benefits people who are just going to put a bunch of 2-cost creatures and lower into their deck, because on turn 12 you get potentially 8 creatures coming out, and it is a good time for you, not for anyone else. But yeah, so it benefits building your deck a very specific way. It's fun, if not, again, a little unbalanced, but we're a little bit beyond balance in this game, and I think Tullius Conscription, when compared to like Halls of the Dwemer, is nothing. But it is still a very good card. It belongs in this kind of top of niche uh, area where all of these cards are basically all supports that are going to be heavily supporting the type of deck that they are building around. So yeah, that's my Conscription talk. Okay, Ulfric's Uprising is a 7-cost action that triggers the summon of each friendly creature. I really like Ulfric's Uprising. Super cool card. I built an entire deck around it. I'm going to put it into Great. I think that being able to re-trigger summon effects is something that we've talked about a lot in this video, specifically with stuff like our unsummon abilities. And this takes all of that out. It doesn't make you unsummon or resummon or whatever. It just flatly allows you to repeat the summon effect of a friendly creature. So it's the same thing with like Abner up here, um, wherever I put him, right there. So the only reason that I would rule Uprising a little bit lower than some of these cards up here is it's very board dependent. And it does have a 7-cost attached to it. So sometimes this is just going to be dead weight in your hand. You draw it at the wrong time, and then it's like not very fun to just have it sit there and wait. If you draw this at the right time, though, it can be monstrous to have to deal with for your opponent. So I really think that it does belong in the upper echelon of cards, and maybe in the next tier list after I think about it a little bit, it might get bumped up. But being able to re-trigger the summon effect of every creature that's active on the board on your side is wild. The amount of value you can get from that card is crazy. Okay, up next, Unite the Houses. This is a 3-cost action that also provides an alternate win condition. If you have at least one card of each attribute in play, you win the game. Pretty crazy. Very tippy top of niche. So this encourages the type of play to generate a bunch of random cards or steal cards from your opponent and try to get all 5 attributes in one deck. The easiest way to do this is basically playing like Mage or Guildsworn and using a lot of those steal-based cards that are in Willpower and uh, why can't I think of it? Willpower and Intelligence. There are many agility cards that can steal creatures as well, and there's a lot of blue cards that can just generate random new cards. So it's a lot easier to do than maybe it should be, but it's also like your opponent can burn you out pretty quickly, and it is kind of all RNG based on who you're playing and what they put in their deck and what kind of cards you randomly generate. So it can be tough, but it's also kind of easy. So the hardest part half the time is finding your Unite the Houses. But yeah, I think it's fun. Okay, Vicious Dreg is up next. This is a 4-cost 3/4 with the summon effect of Destroy an enemy support. I'm putting this thing up in Great because it is neutral. This thing provides support removal for colors that do not naturally have it. The only 2 colors that naturally have support removal are red and purple, with Dishnik-Yal Archer and Shadowfen Priest, and so does Spellsword with Edict of Azura. Everything else has to rely on Vicious Dreg, with the 3/4 for 4 stat line being okay. If you're playing Mage, you might want to throw a few of these in because, as we've discussed, with a lot of our supports, we talked about Goldbrand, Night Mother, Mundus Stone, Orb of Vermina. What else? Training Grounds. Halls of the Dwemer, Moongate, Altar of Despair. There's a lot of supports that are very powerful in this game, and if you don't have a way to destroy them, you are going to be in trouble. Chieftain's Banner, Brotherhood Sanctuary, Swindler's Market, there's three right next to each other that all do very similar things. So you really want support removal in this game. It's one of the reasons that I value Warrior as a color so intensely is because it has access to so much good support removal. Not that Vicious Dreg is bad support removal, but Dushnik Jarl and Shadowfen Priest are much, much better. Okay, Voice of Balance is up next. This is a 4-cost 4/4 with a summon effect of +4/+4 and guard if you have an action item and support in your discard pile or in play. I think this card's good. Naturally, as a 4/4 for 4, it's not hurting anybody, and it's not actually too bad to get an action item and support in play or in your discard pile. It's actually fairly easy to proc this off. It's a lot easier than you would expect, I'll say. So next time that you're playing around with some random cards, you could think about throwing a Voice of Balance in if it makes sense for your deck. I really like these guys in Singleton, just throwing one of these guys in, because it's possible that you played your Siege of Stros Makai already, and then you just are able to get this guy out immediately because you've got all of your supports and whatnot, your support, your action, your item, and creature out. So I quite like Voice of Balance. I think he's fun. A little bit underutilized. Okay, Wabbajack is up next. This is a 5-cost support with 3 uses. The activate is that you transform a creature into a random creature. This is a very big RNG machine, but it's pretty great. So with Wabbajack specifically, the reason that this is not just solid like the other RNG cards is that this transforms a creature into a random creature. It doesn't like kill it like Goldbrand does. It doesn't just summon a random card. And it can be used to turn your opponent's cards or your cards uh, into random creatures. Another thing too is that this bypasses the action rule with stuff like the Hulking Scalon or the Iron Atronach. Hulking Scalon and Iron Atronach cannot be affected by actions, but it doesn't say anything about supports. So you could transform them into something hopefully less abrasive than than either of those two cards. You can use it if your opponent has a guard in the way. You could transform it and hope that it doesn't get guard. Again, very big on the RNG, but hey, that's Legends for you at the end of the day. And this being a support, just like all the other ones, can be comboed very well with the Tower Alchemist and the Cauldron Keeper. Okay, so up next is the Wilds Incarnate. This is a 7-cost 5/6 with guard, and the summon effect is that you draw a card if you have 4 runes. You draw an additional card if you have 5 runes. Wilds Incarnate is a very good card. I would put it into... I'd put it firmly into solid. The thing about this card is that a lot of aggressive style decks are very popular in this game, and a lot of people know about this card. So what people will try to do most of the time is at least break your first rune for like Eastmarch Crusader type stuff. So that way you're getting the minimum value out of this. At worst, you're playing a 5/6 with guard for nothing if you have like no runes, and playing that for 7 doesn't really feel very good, I'll say. So you want to get this thing down kind of early. I typically put like 2 in my deck because 3 usually isn't worth it. If you can get it to go off, it's really good. If you can't, it doesn't feel super great. So that's why I keep it in solid and don't put it any higher. Okay, Word Wall is up next. This is a 1-cost 0/4 guard. Summon effective upgrade a shout in your hand. I'm putting Word Wall into S tier. I don't care what anyone says. Word Wall is crazy. It's a 0/4 guard for 1, which when this thing comes down early, it's very hard to deal with this. Like, a lot of the early game cards you're going to be playing are like Thieves Guild Recruit, Ungolem. If you're lucky enough to have a lethal creature out, that's good. Even like Barrowstalker, though, or even, hell, even Galen, Dark Guardian, they're going to take 2 turns to kill this word wall. And you can use a Night to Remember on word wall to upgrade more shouts. We've discussed all this before, but it's very, very easy to get a word wall and a shout in your hand by like turn 3, basically, or 4 with the Greybeard Mentor. Um, So I just think that because of how powerful shouts are and how prevalent they are, shouts aren't really reliant on being in like dragon-based decks. But Greybeard Mentor and Wordwall, Paul Dragon, I will put all by each other because they are a team and they're a wicked, wicked team. I've used the word wicked more in this video than I have my whole life. Okay, 3 cards left. Yagrum Bagarn, 3 cost, 2/4, Dwemer. Summon, draw a Dwemer from your discard pile and give it +2/+2. Yagrum's just niche. He belongs in Dwemer type decks. He's not going to get any value if you don't have other Dwemer in your deck, and his 3 cost 2/4 stat line is just fine. So not really a problem with him. I like the new art that they gave Yagrum. It's pretty funny. But the real Yagrum issue is down here. This 3 cost support, Yagrum's Workshop. Yagrum's Workshop is an easy S tier card. But I dropped it in great. It's an easy S tier card. The thing with Yagrum's Workshop. So activate. Your summon and assemble abilities trigger an additional time this turn. This kind of reminds me of Assembled Titan here, doesn't it? Um, it'll allow any neutral card of yours to summon twice. Alduin's summon effect triggered twice. Paarthurnax's summon effect triggered twice. Greybeard Mentor triggered twice. They don't have to just be Dwemer or Factotums. It can be any kind of neutral card that we've talked about that's good. Dwarven Colossus could summon 4 Power Spheres instead of 2. Odahviing could deal 8 damage instead of 4. Mudcrab Merchant could summon 2 cards instead of 1 for you. Merchant's Camel can dig twice as efficiently in your deck. Vicious Dreg can kill 2 supports. I think you get the point. Yagrum's Workshop is ridiculous, and it allows for some insane mechanics to be in play, especially with Paarthurnax summoning 6 shouts at 0 cost. That doubles the chance of Paarthurnax being able to find a Soul Tear, which is super annoying. And yeah, I just think this thing needs a big look. Maybe even just delete it from the game, and I don't think anyone would be too upset. It does something very similar to what A Night to Remember does that we talked about, or what Close Call does, where it makes it, or even Ulfric's Uprising, where it makes it very easy to re-trigger these effects. It's just a little bit more focused than Ulfric's Uprising. But I think because of that, it lends into some worse combos than Ulfric's Uprising does. So Yagrum's Workshop really needs a look. I haven't really talked much about Workshop since I started this channel, but it is one of the most abrasive cards in this game. And if you run it, you should really stop. It's very obnoxious. Okay, the final card we have to talk about is Young Dragonborn. This is a 3-cost 3/3. When Young Dragonborn slays a dragon, put a random shout in your hand. After you play a shout, Young Dragonborn gains +1/+1. He's very situational. I think he's very niche. I see a lot of people run this card. I don't quite know why. The thing that saves this card for me is the after you play a shout, Young Dragonborn gains +1/+1. Without it, it's just another 3/3. And that slay a dragon thing is ridiculous because if you look at all the dragons, like what dragon is my boy gonna slay? He's got a 3/3 stat line. He could kill the tiny dragon, that's about it. But if this guy attacks Paarthurnax, he's just gonna die. So this card expects you to play a bunch of shouts before you attack with him, which isn't always going to be that feasible. So at the end of the day, he's just a 3/3 for 3 that should be played alongside shouts, and that's pretty much the long and short of Young Dragonborn. So I'm starting to lose my voice, as you might be able to hear, but we made it through all of the neutral cards. Sorry if this was a little bit sped through. I know that this is going to be the shortest one of the tier list anyway, but I'm trying to get a lot of these tier lists and stuff out of the way because I want to get working on the next lore video as well, and I want to finally be done with these tier lists. As much as I enjoy making them, I want to finally finish them. That way I can complete the master tier list, and we can all move on to something better, I guess. Again, not that I'm having a bad time doing these, but yeah. So I thought that we could just kind of speed through neutral because my opinions on a lot of these cards are already pretty fixed. So yeah, that's the list. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.